Good evening. We do need to start the meeting, please, so I do require some quiet. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to tonight's City of Burnside Council meeting on April the 15th, 2025. It is live streamed and recorded. Please stand if you are able and remain silent during the acknowledgements. We acknowledge the land we meet on today is the traditional land of the Kaurna people and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the original custodians of the Adelaide region and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the Kaurna people today. And we welcome other First Nations people to our meeting. On behalf of the City of Burnside, I gratefully acknowledge and pay respect to all those who have sacrificed their lives for this country and its people. We also consider in our thoughts all those who today are being affected by war around the globe, and especially those in Ukraine and the Middle East. And I take this opportunity to also acknowledge all those who have given their lives and that we commemorate next week on Anzac Day. We seek guidance in our debate as we make decisions that will impact on the lives of all who reside, study, work in or visit the City of Burnside. Grant us wisdom as we serve our community. Please be seated. Just some final reminders. We have a really big agenda, as I alerted you to this afternoon, so a lot to get through. Make your questions clear and succinct. Wait until I call you to speak according to the cue on my screen. Please turn off your microphone when you have finished speaking and show respect for the speaker by listening to what is being said and without disturbing that person's argument. This also applies for respect from all of those in the audience. We have a large crowd here tonight. Thank you for coming. We have guests also from Green Adelaide, 5 approved deputations, a petition to be presented and the draft annual business plan and budget 2025-26 and draft long-term financial plan 25-26 to 2034-35 to be considered. So it is a long and very important agenda, as they always, of course, are. We have no absences tonight, and I just remind you, if you have a declaration of interest, that it needs to be stated prior to any particular item on the agenda. I seek a mover of the minutes or confirmation of the minutes from the last meeting, please. Councillor Turnbull, you're moving. Yes. Seconded by Councillor Jennings. All those in favour? Against? Carried. We don't have any adjourned business. We have no public question time questions, but we do have a presentation. And I welcome Mr. Chris Daniels and Mr. Brenton Greer. Would you like to come forward to the table in the front here, please? And if you press that little button on the right, it'll turn the microphone on, and I will turn mine off. Thank you very much for coming and visiting us. You have, I know you know, 15 minutes to speak, and for people to ask you some questions afterwards, some limited time as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor Molyneux, and thank you to all of the elected members of the City of Burnside for inviting us here as Green Adelaide representatives to talk with you about the actions and activities of Green Adelaide and why it has formed, and to also comment on the role of Green Adelaide in the City of Burnside. So I will wave my arm, thank you, and regularly to move to the next slide. So what we're going to do is review a little bit about what Green Adelaide is and what it does, its vision, its roles, its responsibilities. We will then look at our iconic projects and some of the other interesting things we do across our region, and then finish with some comments about opportunities, crossovers, collaborations, and to seek some feedback and ideas from you all about how we can improve our relationship with the city in general and with the City of Burnside in particular. So why have an urban NRM? You'd be aware that natural resources management has been conducted in South Australia through the board structure, really since going right back to the Ongapringa, the Padualunga and the Torrens Catchment Board days. In 2004, this was reorganised into NRM boards, and then in 2019, the Natural Resources Management structure was reorganised into a landscape structure. So there are currently 9 landscape boards across the state, and we have one located in the City of Adelaide. And that's quite unusual because natural resources management boards really focus on water, soils, biodiversity, even clean air and agriculture, the productivity of the country. So having a natural resources management board in a city is incredibly unusual. In fact, Adelaide is the only city in the world to actually have this particular focus. And the reason is because Adelaide is a biodiversity hotspot. It's a little green island surrounded by oceans to the west and south and to more arid areas to the east and north. This little green island is incredibly productive, produces about 17% of the state's agricultural product, and of course it's home to 1.3 million people. It is home to, if you discount the Cooper Creek, it is home to the 2nd, 3rd and 4th largest rivers in South Australia. So it's an extraordinary landscape, and therefore the community living within it has a really important role in managing quality biodiversity, soils, water, and therefore natural resources management. So it was brought in, thank you, to actually establish this relationship between community and nature and to engage our communities really with the incredible importance and value that we find and gain from nature. So the vision of Green Adelaide under the 2019 Landscape Act was to create a cooler, greener, wilder, climate-resilient Adelaide that celebrates our unique culture, and that goes back 40 to 50,000 years to the Kaurna people, but also is reflective of all of the activities that have gone on since December the 28th, 1836. The Green Adelaide Act is specific, so it is an Act of Parliament that governs what we do. It has a number of idiosyncratic actions in it. One is that it has 7 priorities that we must follow and deliver against. And they include managing coast and marine area. Some 48% of our area is Gulf St Vincent. Also managing Indigenous biodiversity, controlling feral plants and animals, managing waterways and wetlands, dealing with our parks and our open space, dealing with biodiversity and water-sensitive urban design, and of course educating and connecting our community with nature. So we have our 7 priorities there. And then, of course, those 7 individual priorities are set into legislation, actually coalesce to form really a bigger picture of the whole area. And that's illustrated here by a piece of artwork done by Kaurna elder Uncle Alan Sumner, which really shows the way that the water, the built environment, the people, the oceans, all interact and interconnect to create a really special environment and an environment like nowhere else. The landscape, or the Green Adelaide, like all of our landscape boards, are funded by 2 levies. They are funded by a landscape levy, and this levy is raised against rateable properties, and there is a water levy as well. For Adelaide, the water levy raised against people who use water for agricultural and horticultural purposes, that's very small for us. It's only about $100,000. For some boards, such as Limestone Coast and Murraylands, that's a very substantial amount of their income. So Green Adelaide derives most of its income from rateable properties, and you can see from this table there that we have landscape boards, the basis of the levy, which is a rate, the rate charge there, it's there in relatively small print, but you can see it afterwards if you wish. What it works out to be is that Green Adelaide has about $54.79 per $700,000 property. So if you have a $2 million property, it's around about $150. This is one of the lowest, if not the lowest, rating within the state, excluding the arid lands, which are a very unusual situation due to the fact they've only got really a couple of very small townships with it. You can see that Murraylands and Riverlands, they're up around $130 per $700,000 property. Next slide, please. So from there, we we gain a total, really currently, of about $34 million is raised in Green Adelaide across our area. You can see here from the data from 23-24, I'm sorry I don't have the 24-25 data here, but the data from 23-24 showed that we raised $32,132,000. The City of Burnside contributed $1,994,643 and a few cents to that pool. We have 17 councils across our area. So that's a substantial amount of money that is raised from the levy. Now, not all of that, of course, is expended within Green Adelaide. There are a number of stipulations in the Act about how that could be spent. So, for example, a Landscape Priorities Fund is legislated where 15% of our levy is set aside for projects that are applied for by the other boards, not Green Adelaide. And this is because some of the other boards are very small and often they're in very large areas. So very small income, very large area, and this provides money for sometimes multiple year, multiple board projects that are really, really important. So they might be controlling camels, controlling buffel grass, deer in the southeast and so forth. So in 23-24, about 4,878,000 was corralled, if you like, for spending at landscape priority funds. We also have a number of ministerial directives that extract money from our income, or the income derived from Green Adelaide, for very specific functions. And these ministerial directives include the beach management strategy, sometimes referred to as sand carting, but care for the beach, the Padawalunga Lake system, water planning and management in the Mount Lofties, and supporting environmental centres in the Northern York area and in Hills and Fleurieu. So they also are responsible for quite a large slice of the income that comes within. This leaves us then with a discretionary budget of $21.5 million. From that, little under $10 million is spent on staffing, on corporate costs, rent, cars, the maintenance of the activity. We also have legislated $2 million plus that must be spent on two programs, the Grassroots program and the Cooler, Greener, Wilder grants. And I'll talk a bit more of those in a minute. Grassroots are community grants. Community members and groups can apply for funding for those. The Cooler, Greener, Wilder grants are grants that councils can apply for. And Burnside was awarded one last year as an example. Thank you. So we wind up then with about $9.5 million that we spend on around about 70 projects. The way we organise those projects is through a 5-year plan which sets out the strategic goal for Green Adelaide against these 7 priorities. And we also have 4 iconic projects, and I'll touch on those in a moment. So we have our 5-year plan, and we are just coming up to do the next 5-year plan at the moment, and we actively welcome input from the City of Burnside into our 5-year plan, and there'll be many opportunities for you to suggest ideas, projects, programs, and so forth. Within the 5-year plan, we have annual business plans, and that's kind of where the rubber hits the road. The projects are very granular there. Some of the projects can be as little as $10,000 or $20,000. Others are quite substantial. So we wind up with about 70 projects that are broken into 7 priorities and 4 iconic projects. And those iconic projects involve things like heat mapping and tree canopy mapping for our urban greening strategy. They have been repairing and revegetating Breakout Creek. We've had National Park City, and we do some rewilding, and I'll talk about those in a moment. We cross 17 council districts and Gulf St Vincent as well. It's also, our area is the home of 39 of the 47 electorates. So we have 39 state members very keen on having investments in each of their electoral areas, understandably. We support over 130 environmental volunteer groups, comprising over 4,000 volunteers, more than a dozen NGOs. We undertake sponsorship for events and activities, and we also support long-term partners, including Nature Play, Trees for Life, Nature Festival, etc. This is all undertaken by about 50 FTE, which represent about 60 staff. Thank you. So just quickly through our 4 iconic projects, one of great interest to the City of Burnside, and we acknowledge their funding into these projects and to the provision of some data. The first is the creation of an urban greening strategy, which is based on outstanding data collected around heat mapping and also tree canopy data. So the City of Burnside has worked hard to demonstrate the importance of tree canopy in cooling the area. And there's some examples there that show in shaded areas, on a hot day, you might have a shaded asphalt would be 35 degrees. Artificial grass can be up to 80 degrees. So we are very vehemently against artificial grass. If you've got a shaded road, 36 degrees, hard asphalt unshaded, up to 65 degrees. And you can see the bottom pictures there, the blue and the green are much cooler than the orange and the yellow. So white roofs and trees dramatically cool a particular area. The big map there shows it's a heat map standardised against some hills areas, including Ferguson Park here in Burnside. The lighter the colours, the cooler the areas. Ignore the blue up at around the mangrove areas and the salt lakes. You can see that north and south of the city are very substantially warmer on any given day than the areas to the east, which is what you would expect. Next slide, please. This heat mapping correlates very tightly with tree canopy. So we have used LiDAR from aeroplanes to map the tree canopy in 2022, and also used data from 2018 to show tree canopy change. What it shows is actually quite terrifying. We have only about 16.7% of the City of Adelaide is covered with tree canopy, and that is incredibly variable. So Burnside, it's up around 39% of the city is covered with tree canopy, trailing only the City of Mitcham, which is up around well over 50% there. City of Burnside has the most treed suburb in Adelaide, with Waterfall Gully at 52% or thereabouts. I may have misread some of those numbers. I hope your eyes are better than mine. We've also got incredibly variable tree canopy across the city. So some areas, such as Parafield, are down under 2% tree canopy, and there is incredibly variable coverage, so that you see in the north with the darker red, there is very low tree canopy, similarly in the south. And what we have in the south and north is lots of agricultural area, which are dry, barren, dusty, hard brown ground that is gradually getting built upon. You can see that the City of Burnside sits in a little green oasis there along with the City of Mitcham. So an incredible variation of tree canopy across the city. What is important is that most cities around the world target 30% of their coverage should be tree canopy. So at 16.7, we are a long way behind that. A general rule, we should have 30% tree canopy. Everybody should see 3 trees at any given moment, and they should be no more than 300 metres from a park. We are a long way behind those. So this data, thank you, enables us to develop an urban greening strategy. This strategy was launched earlier this year, and it also connects directly with the Greater Adelaide Regional Plan to underpin or include greening within the growth of the city, and we all know that's growing at an incredible rate. Also, with our urban greening strategy, and there are 6 priorities that I don't have time to go through now, but with that we have things like garden guides that are given to developers so that they have some easy tools to add greenery during developments, whether they be mum and dad developers or larger developers. Plant selector to select the right tree for the right place for the right time, and other resources that we develop. Next slide, please. Our second iconic project is rewilding. So rewilding is bringing back Indigenous species. They were species that were here that may have died out or become incredibly rare, and that are really important for ecosystem services, for things particularly like our rivers and our parklands and our oceans. So we have got a number of rewilding programs. In particular, we're focusing on platypus. Platypus were last found in the Torrens in the 1880s, They were hunted and died out because of destruction of the Torrens. Torrens has been improved enormously, particularly over the Torrens revitalisation project of the last 20 years, and is now in condition that is suitable for reintroduction of platypus. Provided, of course, we have water in the Torrens. Currently we don't have a lot, but we continue to work with SA Water about establishing environmental flows. So rewilding actually works for the benefit of the animal itself and the ecosystem that's there, but it also is a great lever to improve the condition of some of our natural assets. So platypus can only happen if the Torrens is in the very best possible health. How do we make that happen is really important. And also, does it bring along the community to value our natural assets? Animals like the platypus have an enormous impact on the local community and get them talking about the River Torrens. Thank you. Our third iconic project is Breakout Creek, or Purunna Parry, which means Creek of Life. This has just been completed. About 3.5 kilometres of revegetation and reshaping of Breakout Creek. This was a mud and cement drain, really designed to deliver Torrens outflow to the Gulf as fast as possible. It really was a very degraded and degenerate part of the Torrens. It has now been completely reorganised and restructured with the help of multiple partners, including City of West Torrens and City of Charles Sturt, federal and state government. 18.7 million has been spent on that. It is worthwhile taking a walk along Breakout Creek now. It bears no resemblance to what it used to. And this has enabled us to introduce other species that were found there. Species like purple spotted gudgeon, lamprey have returned to the area, and it's become a refuge for wildlife where everywhere else is drying out. So you can find large numbers of water birds, for example, there, using it as their last hope, the Alamo, if you like, for environment. Next slide, please. Adelaide as a national park city has been an important program. We have been the second national park city, and this is an international recognition of the importance of having nature in cities for communities and for the sake of nature itself. This piece of art done by a young lady is on display down at the airport, and it has emboldened a lot of the projects that we have undertaken. It also enables us to take our message of urban greening and having nature in the city to the wider world. And we have been working very closely with other cities around the world for them to become national park cities. And Chattanooga and Breda in the Netherlands, Chattanooga in the US, have both just become national park cities, in large part to the hard work of Brenton Greer, the director of Green Adelaide, of Dr. Sharon Pittman, the leader of our National Park City program, and the whole team here. So we get a chance to champion Adelaide on an international stage through the National Park City program. Thank you. The other things that we do, incredibly briefly, we spend a lot of time on our stewardship and education programs and engaging young people through things like the Youth Environment Council and Coastal Ambassadors. We have run these programs for really since 2004, since the inception of the NRM, and these are incredibly popular. Engaging young people is absolutely vital so that we don't lose that connection with nature. Thank you. Some of our other achievements, we spend a lot of time and effort engaging with Kaurna people. We have a number of groups that we work with. Fire Stick Alliance is cultural burning within some of our parks. We have Wapalai Kamunka, which is a Kaurna group that provides frank and fearless advice to the board from a Kaurna perspective. We support the Nature Festival, which last year delivered over 4,000 events. We have increased the protection of some important conservation parks like Tennyson Dunes and Field River. The Breakout Creek has won a range of awards, including the Australian Water Association. Urban greening strategy now is embedded with GARP. If we didn't have it and didn't operate, there probably wouldn't be a greening strategy in GARP. We rewild a lot of interesting things. I've already spoken about purple spotted gudgeon, but painted dragons, yam daisies, a range of butterflies to improve the nature of our city. We use some interesting novel methodologies. So we've been working with conservation sniffer dogs, for example, who are trained to sniff out the caterpillars. and they're incredible. They can find these beautiful little caterpillars, collect those up, introduce them into the new areas. I can talk for ages on conservation dogs, but I won't. Landscape Act was reviewed recently, and we had a very large part to play in that, and they are very satisfied with our role, which will remain essentially unchanged. We have completed dashboards which are accessible on the website, which shows the success of our various projects. We have a lot of social media profile and podcasts. We engage with local government on every opportunity. So again, thank you for inviting us here. And then we have grassroots grants that I'll talk about in a minute. We have growing profile and a lot of interest in joining the board. Last round we had over 108 applications for the board positions, which is quite an extraordinary level of interest to join the board. And then we work with our other boards on a range of projects. Just recently we've started with Hills and Fleurieu for rebirding the Mount Lofties. Thank you. So that's just some examples of the others we're doing. The granting programs should be of great interest to the City of Burnside. We provide grassroots grants, which are community grants. They can be applied for by individuals or groups. Cooler, Greener, Wilder grants are applied by councils. And then we have blue carbon grants applied for by researchers. Thank you. So some of the grassroots that have been awarded to the City of Burnside have been ones to schools like Norwood International, Rose Park and McGill, and they have been used to create butterfly gardens, frog gardens, a range of community gardens, and areas that community can interact with. Thank you. We have also worked closely with the Friends of Cleland Conservation Park, who do a lot of work on First and Second Creek at Waterfall Gully to control pest plants and animals. That was a grassroots grant, thank you. And we work with the University of Adelaide with a wonderful group of people known as the Bandy Bunch, where we have funded over $125,000 to support their studies and the recovery of the southern brown bandicoot in Waterfall Gully and Cleland and other areas there. And as you can see, the City of Burnside very proudly support these wonderful people. Thank you. Cooler, Greener, Wilder grants have been funded here to the City of Burnside for iconic tree planting programs, and more recently to Penfold Park just last year. Thank you. We also support other activities and individuals. Green Adelaide has developed the Peltzer Award, named after Augustus Peltzer, the first city gardener, who quietly and in a shy and almost bashful way transformed the City of Adelaide by being the first city gardener to plant up the city. We now have the Peltzer Award, and it went to one of the City of Burnside's most illustrious products, Dr. Mark Ellis, last year. Thank you. In terms of crossover and collaboration, where we're going next, and this is where we would like to have ideas and contributions from every one of our 17 councils, but particularly from you. We do things like controlling pest plants along boards, and along roads, I should say. Olives are a big area of interest and activity for us here in Burnside. As you know, controlling deer in the peri-urban area is a real focus. We work with the Hills and Fleurieu Council, and we invest significant money here. Deer are a problem, particularly around the Southeastern Freeway and just all through the Mount Osmond area. There they represent a terrible road hazard, and their numbers are quite high, and they do, of course, a lot of damage to the natural environment. And we do other forms of vegetation management, and so we're looking for more crossover and collaboration roles. We also do biodiversity sensitive urban design grants, so we've awarded habitat planting for corridors here in the City of Burnside, and other urban and plant control partnerships. Thank you. And finally, we also support a Resilient East Coordinator that works with a range of the councils, some 5 eastern councils here, and we provide $120,000 a year to support that position around supporting climate change in the area. Some of the other areas you have suggested is to continue to support volunteer groups. You have some fantastic volunteer groups. The Friends of Cleland, I know well from my time as Director of Cleland Wildlife Park, and also your Burnside Urban Foresters do some fantastic work here. Some ideas that have been suggested by the CEO have included further volunteer support, and we actively encourage volunteers to apply for our grassroots grants that are open at the moment. We do need more long-term monitoring. You have some magic little spots here, like Ferguson Park, and there needs a good deal more, and any other suggestions that you might have. Thank you. So we encourage you then, in conclusion, to connect with us. Email us at any time, connect us directly through the CEO, invite us back, and we would love to continue to work and foster our relationship. So thank you very much for listening, and we are open to questions.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you. I'll start off. Thank you very much for coming along tonight and for us being able to know exactly what you do, because it's most illuminating and you're very busy. One of the things I'd like to know about is the challenges of managing our soils so we can support our trees and our biodiversity sites. And do you give advice and support to councils to do that, from our biodiversity sites across to our grasslands and all the way through council?
So soils are unbelievably important and quite variable across the area. You know that we have reactive clay soils here in the city of Burnside, and that varies towards the alluvial and sand soils as you get down towards the coast. We don't do a lot of direct soils.
No, not a lot of direct work in soils, but just to know, there's a national soil monitoring program that just kicked off. Doesn't have any sites in the city of Burnside, but there are a couple of sites in Green Adelaide. So there is definitely a desire to know more about soils. I think, to be honest, a lot of our ecologists working with your sorts of teams at the moment, it's the knowledge they have, it's common sense, but yeah, we're not specifically investigating soils.
We do support quite a bit of research into the microbiome that's associated with soils. So again, that fits more neatly into our biodiversity aim. It's kind of a shame we don't have soils as an aim, but that has been proved to be incredibly important for improving human health and well-being. Yes, there's so much more that we could do. We could do more with air too, as another area, but we're limited.
Councillor Dawes.
Chris, thank you for coming in. I've seen your face on TV many times. What I'm interested in is the relationship and influence you have on other government departments. And I'll give you two examples. One is the recent announcement by the government to have new housing on agricultural land, and you did mention that. And the second one you mentioned was feral animals,
yes,
and in particular cat management. Now, do you have any input into those particular submissions that have been made?
Yes, the answer is yes. And you used the correct term, influence. So we don't have any statutory authority, so we can't direct any other organisations. Our Act doesn't sit above other Acts. So it is an influencing Act, and we invest money into programs and we provide knowledge. So what we do with those exact examples is go, if we are developing north and south on agricultural land, how then do we apply greening with the target of 30% trees? So we use the data that we have collected, and we've collected with you, to show that is really important, that is beneficial to the community. We produce the materials that show how it can be done, so how it can be added into those developments, and then that gives me the right to go to Bruce Chitta in the Property Council, which I do, work with the Planning Minister to add those into the planning. So we can't override council, unfortunately, as much as I would like to. They are the decision makers. We are the knowledge brokers and the providers and the influencers. So I also work very closely with the Deputy Premier as well about how we provide that. Cats and other feral animals are a huge issue. So we provide really important information about the difference between home and feral cats, around responsible cat management, and one of the big things that we really try to do is engage our community with how important it is to look after nature. So individuals have a responsibility, and it's not a responsibility of council all the time, of Green Adelaide, of state government, Department for Environment and Water, but individuals should be watering trees, they should be keeping their cats at home, and we're changing that sort of approach. So that's kind of a longer term influence and a more gentle influence. We do provide really good information about what is out there. And where necessary, such as with deer, we will invest money into culling programs, which we do with Hills and Florio. So influence is the right word, and it can vary from quite strong and direct to subtler and more community focused.
Thank you.
Councillor Jennings.
Thank you very much, Professor Daniels. My ears pricked up when I heard about your caterpillar dogs. Are they like truffle pigs?
In a sense, yes. Yeah. The conservation dogs.
And foxes, remember?
Oh well, that's true. They are so magnificently trained. They're Kelpies, I think. Australian Kelpies.
No, there's also the Labrador.
And a Labrador. They can be trained to sniff out pretty much anything. So we started off with sniffing out fox dens. So at the right time of year, they can be used to fumigate for kids, for baby foxes, and therefore reduce the fox load, which is pretty heavy in the city. And then from there, they were trained to smell and identify the caterpillars. So these are really effective ways of easily collecting material, collecting animals, and then introducing them. Magnificent dogs.
No, thank you. That's magnificent to hear.
Councillor Henschke.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Now, in our ward, we have all these historic brick culverts that run through the suburb of Rose Park and Dulwich and
Yes.
Tyrwhitt Gardens, and they collect all the stormwater, and off it goes to the Torrens. And some of them need, improvement, they're collapsing perhaps. But instead of the engineering solution of whacking in a concrete, new box culvert in there, is there any other way we can do, create some infrastructure to improve water quality, for example? And I know we can't bring these things back to the creek state, the condition of the creek with biodiversity, but is there something we could do to create some biodiversity, filter the stormwater to improve the torrens for the platypus?
I love what you're saying, and
Thank
absolutely
you.
you can, and because quite a lot of them, there can be quite a lot of repair. So I think Tusmore Creek has undergone quite a bit of repair recently. Brenton's.
Yeah, so it's just the Breakout Creek example.
Yes.
If you have a wander down there, you'll see two linear, almost wetlands down the side, and that's exactly for the reason of trying to naturalise the River Torrens, but also to actually pass the water that's coming off the local stormwater through those wetlands. And naturalisation of stormwater facilities, infrastructure is something we love to do, of course. They have a purpose to,
Well,
make
they're
sure you don't flood.
So
lovely.
what we try to do is influence the Stormwater Authority
Right.
and SA Water around managing those, and of course they've got legal responsibilities and under their act as well. So we try to work with them to find ways to, wherever possible, avoid the big cement culverts.
Yes.
And we have put in submissions where we've not been satisfied with them across Adelaide, and try to influence those to think more broadly, rather than automatically assume that a big cement culvert is the solution.
Yes.
And certainly the community love much more naturalised streets.
Yes, there's a real wonderful network of brick culverts running through those old parts of our heritage areas. Yeah.
And so
Thank you.
One of the few places we do actually have a regulatory power is water affecting activities. But most councils have a best practice operating guidelines, so you often make those decisions on our behalf. And we also, when Chris was answering the last question, we actually do provide referrals on many proposals that come to government or come from government. So we do that as well in terms of influencing in that way.
And we do partner and invest, so we invested in Pakapakanya, the Victoria Park wetland, which is a magnificent piece of work, along with Stormwater Authority, Adelaide City Council, I think you as well.
Brownhill Keswick Creek.
Brownhill Creek, Keswick Creek has been a really big piece of work for us for 15 years, really, and will continue to be so.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilkins.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming in this evening.
Pleasure.
having seen a fox down my street in Eastwood, 11:30 p.m. one night after a council meeting,
Yeah.
what are you actually able to do to eradicate foxes from our city and suburban areas?
So eradicate, we're never going to achieve, unfortunately, and as much as I would like to. What we try to do is identify where they actually make their dens in an area where they can be fumigated. So you can't bait, for obvious reasons, and you can imagine how many people would want my head on a spike if they lost their dog or cat. So there's a lot of areas where there's not much that can be done. Interestingly, a lot of people have taken to have chickens, and the moment you have chickens, you get foxes. And I know my golden retriever every morning before sunrise is got up by the fox that cruises our neighbour's chicken coop. So they're here to stay. They also tend to come down the riverways, and that's a significant issue. So first, second, third creeks, river torrents. So they're here. So we're working mostly to eradicate them where they do a lot of denning, which is in the sand dunes and golf clubs and golf courses, because they love those sorts of areas. And that's what we can't do is shoot them, obviously, in built-up areas. So they're difficult. They're very difficult to manage. Very wily. So we have to find them when they're denning. If we can find the dens, we can fumigate the dens either with poison or carbon monoxide.
So residents should be aware that if they locate a den, notify council.
Exactly. Yes. Contact your biodiversity officer, and they'll probably work with us and with DEW as well.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you again for coming in. Just got a governance question,
Sure.
relating more so around the finances of it. During the recent consultation, was there any consideration for the state government to start collecting this levy instead of councils, given it pretty much, you mentioned ownership, I suppose, with local members of parliament all bidding for it. Obviously, collecting it through councils, we would assume that we've got a bit of ownership there versus it being a state government sort of levy. Noting, looking at your figures, you're collecting the same amount from the city of Tea Tree Gully as you were from the city of Burnside, and they've got more than double our population. So, it's not really equitable at a local council level. Was there any consideration having the state government collect this through Revenue SA, given they've now got the ability through the Emergency Services Levy?
So the Landscape Act review did canvass a wide swathe of opinions, and that was voiced by a number of individuals and organisations. Quite a number of other local governments quite like collecting the levy because structured appropriate. This is across the state. They could actually make a tidy profit. Each of the councils received payment for collecting the levy. So there was also some local governments that quite liked it. The end result was that there wasn't much of an appetite to change it to Revenue SA or some other collecting mechanism. It's in the Act, so it bears no relationship to any of the landscape boards. We have no control over who collects it, how it's collected. It doesn't bear any activity on what we say. If there is movement for change, that will be done probably through LGA. They would then have to change it at state government. Last, at the Landscape Act, I think it was, both sides of Parliament voted to keep it the way it is. The equity one is interesting because you're quite right. There are substantially more residences in Tea Tree Gully, and in fact, some councils like Charles Sturt are even much larger and raise substantially more levy. Currently, as I said, it's $50 per $700,000 house, give or take a bit. So clearly the residents here are on average much greater in value, hence the larger amounts. So there is that vary across. The Landscape Act review really kind of thought that those that had more valuable properties could afford to pay more. And I know that creates some issues, and there's always tensions around being asset rich and income poor if you're retired, those sorts of things. But at this stage, that is still regarded as probably the most equitable way. No one's come up with a better solution or one that is more of greater appetite for state government. So we have no control over how that was done. That's our act. But it's a fair question.
Our last question from Councillor Jones.
I'm interested in the tree canopy target, 30%. The biggest threat we have to tree canopy cover in the city of Burnside is property subdivision.
Yes.
which we have no power over, what do you think is a sensible minimal block size and maximum site coverage that the state government should be setting to ensure this target is achieved?
Oh, look, that's a fabulous question. And look, if I was a dictator, I'd be a benign dictator, but I would be right in your corner here. And I think I worry terribly, particularly about seeing some of the larger blocks with magnificent trees on them, especially around here, disappearing into 2, 3, 4 houses that often have no trees on them. One of the things that I particularly worry about is the wholesale clearance when a house is knocked down, sort of beforehand. There is now some new technologies, and we'll be looking in that, about moving established trees. So you can actually dig them up and put them along the boundaries and along the edges. So we're looking at how that might actually work and do some of the street trials along there. Again, what we can do and what we have done is work behind the scenes to toughen the tree legislation. We have significant trees, regulated trees. Recently, there's been a massive increase in the compensation should you remove trees. It was a very small amount. I could use many words, but a very small amount. Now it's substantially greater, along with planting new trees. I'm not a big fan of removing beautiful old trees and putting in a couple of saplings that then die in a couple of years. But those legislation has been strengthened. We should also be thinking about strengthening legislation around types of trees. We have some really important iconic trees. These are natives like South Australian blue gum, river red gum, but also things like Moreton Bay fig, even jacaranda in some areas are incredibly iconic trees. So they should be recognised for the value that they bring. The best way we do is go back to the point about influencing. We push for tougher legislation, and we work with members of Parliament who are quite keen on greater legislation. We use the data that we've collected to point out how valuable they are in terms of individual human health and well-being, and then also on the fact that they improve habitat. One of the great things about living in Adelaide is the bird life and the butterfly life. I won't say the possums because that can bring about strong emotions. And so there's only one thing worse than one possum in your roof at 3 in the morning, and that's 2 possums in your roof. However, we live in this extraordinary place, which is this really rich life. That needs to be on the table foremost at all times. And so even with things like the legislation around private schools, we put in strong submissions there about the value of trees in private schools.
Absolutely.
Often they have the biggest and oldest of trees because they have substantial land. So we continue to keep pushing in that area. We don't have legislative power, but we do have influence.
I'd like to thank you very much on behalf of the City of Burnside, both you, Chris and Brenton, for coming in and talking to us. And I'm sure if people have got further questions, that they can communicate with you, and I'm sure will. So thank you. I look forward to listening to you on ABC Radio as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, we will now move to deputations. We have 5 deputations this evening, and I will call them up one at a time. The first one is Mr. Robert Landon. And just a reminder to all the deputies to state your name and the suburb you live in, not your full address, and then you'll have your 5 minutes with a warning bell at 4 and another one at 5. Thank you.
Excuse me, Mayor, I thought the petition was going to be the next item. No?
No, it's after. Comes after the deputations on the agenda.
My apologies. Good evening, Your Worship and councillors. My name is Robert Landon, or Bob. I live at Hazelwood Park. I firstly wish to thank the councillors who have supported us, Councillors Joe Harvey, Jane Davey and Harvey Jones. Your timely responses and advice has been really helpful. We appreciate that. Thank you. Of the 833 valid signatures, over 700 of those were from the City of Burnside. We did not ask any minors to sign. These signatures are from people eligible to vote. If you look at page 1 of your handouts, you will see how many people in your ward who can vote sign this petition. There would have been more. Unfortunately, sign sheets were stolen from one of the supporting businesses. Page 2 is an extract from City of Burnside Census Fact Sheet 2021. Note that the whole population is predicted to grow, and not just young people. Let's please be looking at the whole community. Thank you. Page 3 is a notice on the window of Rustic Gourmet Cafe, a very much loved cafe and meeting spot adjacent to Linden Park Reserve. Unfortunately, it's closing. It's been there since 2013. I've spoken to the owner. She mentioned a lack of support from government on all levels, including having to pay an annual fee for safety bollards to the Burnside Council. She was battling through difficulties of keeping a small business viable, but the lack of parking plus the uncertainty of the future with the skate park was the last straw for her. I won't reiterate on what a Will Park must and could have. I'm sure you're all very aware by now. I thought I'd have a look at this site myself. I obtained dial before you dig documents that are freely available to anyone. I also did some desktop work sourcing information available to the public. Page 4 is an indicative plan of the site sourced from Location SA Map Viewer. The top line in red indicates the approximate boundary of where the road reserve would be retained for Green Hill Road. You can't go north of that. On a conversion to community land, easements generally 3.5 metres wide will be put in place. These will be in the vicinity of the blue lines associated with the sewer main, stormwater mains and water reticulation. They're the blue lines you can see. Note that easements are not built over and access needs to be retained for inspection points, valves, water hydrants, think of the fire brigade, and maintenance vehicles. Those services are there because it's a road reserve. Structures are not built on road reserves, the same as structures are not built on footpaths. Note,
excuse me, I'm just going to interrupt a moment. Can we please keep comments to yourselves? And that applies to everybody throughout all the deputations. We'll restart the time from now.
the structural root zones for the trees are the small red circles, with the larger red circles the tree protection zone. I estimated these, but these would be pretty close to what an arborist would come up with. The maths is not hard. Note that it is not recommended to place wheel parks near trees, as the leaves and other falling debris causes problems. To the east of the reserve, there's a white dotted line. This indicates an unformed road. This is historical and not likely to be of any benefit to a skate park. There will also be restrictions on what can be done under power lines. Please look at page 5, you'll see that. Also, this site is included in the zone for a 1 in 20 chance of flooding. Refer to page 6. Page 7 shows a 1 in 50 chance. I didn't bother with the 1 in 100 because the whole thing's blue. Page 8 has information from the City of Burnside's open space strategy in 2008. I don't think that's 4 minutes, by the way. Strategy direction is to develop a sustainable natural landscape with stormwater integration, which is a diametric opposite to a skate park. Right, closing into Linden Avenue would require extensive work including a U-turn area, correct? Rearrangement of power lines and street lights, correct? A significant rearrangement of stormwater. A lot of water runs down Linden Avenue. It's downhill. You can't just have a drain there. You've got to do something big time. And we've got to allow access to emergency vehicles and maintenance vehicles. So many reasons why this site is not suitable for this type of development. I urge you to act in line with what the petition called for. That is, Council does not endorse a proposed budget of 40 grand to undertake a feasibility study, does not further consider conversion of the reserve, I've got 10 seconds, for the use of a wheel park, including any other studies, and does not select the reserve as a suitable site for a wheel park. Thank you.
Councillor Jones.
Bob, thanks for coming in. You sound quite knowledgeable. What's your professional background?
No, I'm all right. I've got a Certificate of Technology in Electronic Engineering. I'm also an engineering associate. I have a diploma in management. I had 20 years as a technical specialist in the telecommunications industry. I worked Australia-wide, plus held positions in Central Java and Washington DC. My last 18 years I was in the power industry as a project manager, with the last 4 years on state critical projects to do with the stabilisation and the stabilisation of the power network.
So, in your professional opinion, how much would it cost to build a skate park on this really pretty flimsy piece of land?
I'll take you through what would go through first looking at the project. Look at page 4, and we'll start with a project that's similar. And if we looked at Newland Park, was that about $1 million? 5 years ago, so add 10% a year, so that'll be 1.6. We're going to build a toilet block. They're between 250 and 500. It's Burnside, we'll go 400. There's 2 million already. Now, we're going to put a fence, a safety fence around this to protect the kids from cars, aren't we? So guard railing is about $3,000 a metre. We've got about 100 metres there, so there's 300 grand. And there might be bollards, but you know that won't add much. I believe we're going to have tennis court style fencing around it. That'll be about 30 grand, but you can't put it under the power lines. So that'll make the park smaller, or if you underground the power lines or move it, there's another 300,000 minimum. What else we got? Oh, the feasibility study, 40 grand, not much. And there'll need to be an acoustic barrier down the eastern side for that house. I think that would be in the order of 20 or 30,000, not sure. And then it comes to Linden Avenue. If that is to be closed off, you're dealing with stormwater, moving the power lines and street lighting, removal of asphalt would cost hundreds and hundreds of thousands, probably $500,000.
Thank you.
Councillor Dawes.
Bob, I'm over here. First, I just want to acknowledge the hard work that you put into this petition. My question, it could be two questions, but I'll start off with one question, Mayor. There are a number of reasons that you've given in the preamble to your petition as to why it's unfavourable. Right. Now, you would have spoken to a number of signatories, I'm assuming, while this petition was being put out. It may close off Linden Avenue, it may affect local trees, the Will Park may be too noisy. There are a number of them. From your meeting with the signatories at various times, what was the main concern, in your opinion, only in your opinion?
It was, why didn't we know about this? That was the first thing people would say to us. What's this? When did this come up? Who thought of this idea? Who voted for it? And then what they were cross about was the council spending money when we're in debt, the possible closure of Linden Avenue, the loss of car park.
Was there any one in particular? Because the first two you mentioned aren't mentioned in the petition. You're talking about debt and so forth.
No. Well,
so I'm trying to find out which is the main one from the petition's point of view.
From the petition point of view.
Yeah, which one, in your opinion...
Shall I get it out?
It is a subjective analysis, I understand that, but you would have spoken to a number of signatories over the past month or so?
People simply didn't want a skate park there.
Okay, thank you. Now, my second question to you, if I can, Mayor, is that I have received a number of emails from the signatories, and they said to me, put it in Hazelwood Park, don't put it here, which I found quite strange, because are they against the Will Park or against it being in that location? Can you give a comment on that?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, Bob. Thank you for coming in this evening and giving us your very detailed deputation, and we thank you for that and all your hard work. We know that this skate park exercise has turned very ugly, with bullying, threats and allegations of misrepresentation and misinformation, including residents informing me they have had responses from the Mayor to them about misinformation also. This has been very damaging, it's been very vicious and upsetting to our residents. And it's also very vexatious, and I'm wondering that with these accusations, have we identified any misinformation in our community? Because it certainly hasn't come from councillors, nor has it come from residents. Thank you.
I'll read something out. In addition to the account given to my wife in her deputation in the March meeting, we've also been made aware of other people being told by the council or council representatives that there is misinformation about the Will Park. No one has identified what that misinformation is to us, so we can't respond, except to say the request in the petition is based on the wording in the discussion of the document authored by Councillor Dawes. Your document, item 9.1, 18th of February agenda. And I can read those bits out if you'd like, but that's what we based it on. You know, it said we might... Right, okay. I'll read out the bits. How's that? We haven't got all night here anymore. Includes a 40k for consideration in the 25-26 annual business plan and budget to undertake a feasibility study, concept design and community consultation for a Will Park at Linden Avenue Reserve, including necessary road closures. Right? It's all good? And then in the discussion, building a Will Park at this location would require a road closure process under the Roads Opening and Closing Act to declare the land be classified as community land and endorse community land management plan. The southeast portion of the carriageway, that's the bit you drive on, of Linden Avenue could also be considered under the same road closure process. That wording indicates to us that the study's going to consider closing Linden Avenue. It cannot be anything else, surely.
Thank you. I'll now ask for the
I
next
just have another question, please.
I've got two other people.
Well, I was
All right.
still... Thank you. Bob, amongst all the threats, bullying and accusations, you confirmed that petition papers were actually stolen from a local business. Do we know who actually removed these signed petition sheets, as residents have faithfully signed those petitions, believing that their signatures will count in the final counting of the petition? Thank you.
No, we don't know, but we know when they were taken. And given that that cafe's currently closing, we thought it's not appropriate to look at security vision. That they don't need it. Yeah.
Now, Councillor Davey.
Thank you. Thank you very much for coming along tonight, Bob, and for all the organisation that you and your subcommittee have undertaken to sign up so many people who are so concerned about the possibility of a skate park in Linden Avenue Reserve. I've just got a couple of questions about, you mentioned in your detailed deputation the concern about trees, which I have a huge concern about, and how a development in this site, or such as a skate park, would affect the existing trees and any future trees. And the other one, if you could comment on, is what the closure of Linden Avenue would mean to you and the group of all the residents who live in the streets around Linden Avenue. Thank you.
Well, with the trees, I think everyone aware in this room is about the two zones associated with trees. You've got the structural root zone, which you can't touch, and then there's the tree protection zone. Even, I think the example of the big tree in Burnside Village, they did everything they could there to save that tree. So even if you do everything, as long as, if any soil's disturbed, it increases the chance of that tree having problems. So, no, I won't go into specific examples, but it just, if you do nothing, it's okay. But if you're messing around with the soil around tree roots, it increases the chance of limbs falling, or at worst, the tree dying. So it's an increased risk. So with this one, you can follow all the rules. Might be all right, but chances are, well, it's going to increase the risk to those big trees. I didn't do them for the little trees because they're in the grassed area, and the grassed area is not going to get touched. The other thing I had about trees and skate parks is leaves and debris fall onto the track, and that blocks up the drains. So in winter, the bowls turn into ponds. In summer, the concrete is really, really slippery, and you get leaves and stuff like that. That's dangerous. It also messes with the wheels of skateboards. And if you've got concrete around trees, eventually the tree roots will crack the concrete. You can look that up yourself. The recommendation is, if a tree provides shade to a skate park, then its leaves are also a problem.
Councillor Davey, you wanted a second question?
Oh, sorry, yeah, can you... Oh, that was the closure. What would it mean to us? Well, people use Linden Avenue every day. You know, it is the thoroughfare to Devereux Road. And people probably not aware, Linden Avenue was voted the 4th favourite street in the city of Burnside. And that's, I guess, because of the median street put in there, all the trees and all of that. I don't think we ought to be messing with the residents' 4th favourite street. What it would do to us is it puts more traffic down the side streets, and I don't mind saying I'm in one of those side streets. It's a narrow street, it's already a bit dangerous with the amount of traffic that goes through and the cars parked. They're basically a one-way street.
Right, Councillor Jones, this is going to be the last question because we still have 4 more deputations and a possible 5th one.
Sorry.
Thanks, Bob. Sorry, I can only ask
It's not your fault.
I can only ask 2 questions at a time, so I'm back for another one. Back to page 4 again. You mentioned an unformed road. Can you tell us what an unformed road and why it's a problem, or might be a problem?
It's a historical road, and this one is, the centre of this is collinear with Tasmore Avenue. So it's, many years ago it was considered a road. It's not going to be a road now, it never will be, but it could be claimed by the council. But you wouldn't be able to do much with it. 1, because it's a grassed area, which isn't going to be touched. And 2, it's chock-a-block with telecommunications and high-pressure gas. There's pits all the way along there. See, it's a road reserve. You put these things in road reserves. You don't put these things in parks. You know, I can't believe the council's own people didn't look at this. You know, it doesn't take someone like me. sorry, don't know what I'm trying to say. The council's got really good people that could look at this and say, why on earth are we thinking of doing anything here with all this stuff in the ground?
Thank you very much, Mr. Landon. Now we move to the second deputation this evening, which is from Mr. David Betchley. Councillor Harvey, can you just turn your microphone off, please?
One moment, please. Good evening. My name is David Betchley and I live in Hazelwood Park. Please take note that skate park and wheel park are used interchangeably in the media to mean the same development, and I mentioned both. Excuse me. I recently made a virtual visit to the internet website that is localcouncils.sa.gov.au to have a look at the best skate parks across South Australia. In Adelaide, Cityscape is a one-of-a-kind skate facility which apparently features unique purpose-built obstacles that give skaters new challenges. This and another 3 sites, West Beach, Flagstaff Hill and Paradise Recreation Plaza, which recently cost $3.9 million, are open day and night all year round with extensive and varied skating facilities. These skate parks are not small adapted neighbourhood car parks. I'm here because, and I quote from the council's website, Council wants to identify if the idea of a proposed wheel park in Linden Avenue Reserve is practical. To ensure that it is informed in its decision making, Council will commission a wheel park feasibility study to determine if the project is likely to succeed before any investment is made to create concept designs. Fair enough. But at present, the Linden Avenue Reserve is essentially used for motorists to safely park while attending businesses on Green Hill Road, near Devereux Road and the adjacent Asian restaurant. Parking availability adjacent to the businesses, as we've heard, on Green Hill Road is significantly limited, due in part to Green Hill Road acting as a major access road to the area and to the City of Adelaide. In November 2021, a pump track workshop was conducted by the council, and they found that the Linden Avenue Reserve was unsuitable as a location due to the slope of the site and the proximity to arterial roads. Nonetheless, albeit deemed an unsuitable location, a pump track is what we see at the bottom of Linden Avenue currently. And this is small by comparisons to the dimensions of a skate park. And again from the council's website, I quote, "The reserve currently comprises mostly a car park, and it is expected that the feasibility study will include consideration of closing a portion of Linden Avenue Reserve to enlarge the available hard surface space for a wheel park, add additional lawn, trees, other vegetation and supporting infrastructure." And so closure of this end of Linden Avenue would mean that the vehicles which currently utilise the park will have to park elsewhere, and it is expected that a portion of the visitors to a skate park will drive there and have to park nearby, presumably Linden Avenue, Devereux Road or Green Hill Road. The intersection of Linden Avenue and Devereux Road is used by the residents as a way to access the main arterial Green Hill Road, as stated. Closing Linden Avenue would necessitate residents diverting into the generally narrow side streets to access Devereux Road and Green Hill Road, and similarly vehicles wanting to access the northern end, that is the northern end of Linden Avenue, would need to go around any development. I bring to the attention of the council that the construction of a skate park in this location is dependent upon many stages over the next few years, and my concerns are associated with the failure of council at this time to provide residents of the Linden Avenue Reserve area with valid reasons for a skate park at this location, when there has been no previous agreement as to this appropriate use of the reserve, and when there will be extensive changes to the flow of traffic in the immediate reserve area, and a consequent access between the roads. There has been no discussion with the residents of Linden Avenue with any regard to this proposed development. And according to the recent survey that's just been provided, a skate park is not wanted by the Linden Avenue Reserve community. I acknowledge that it's important for young people in general and for those in the city of Burnside to have places where they can participate in physical activity. However, given the current financial situation, the lack of community support, the structure and nature and space required for a useful and used skate park, the closeness of a main arterial road and housing, the disruption of the local traffic flow, and as I say, the questionable need for budgetary expenditure, I would hope that this council will come to the realistic conclusion that the feasibility study is unnecessary. Thank you.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for coming along tonight.
Thank you.
Are you aware that there are skate parks? There's one being upgraded, and a very modern one in Campbelltown, one in West Terrace in the city, and one in Ridge Park on Glen Osmond Road, which is being upgraded. Does that support your theory that these are all quite large ones, that there are skate parks available? I mean, you haven't alleged that, but I'm just saying there are skate parks available in the area close by and easily accessible, which could be utilised by the youth of Burnside, so that we're not abandoning them.
Yes, I am very aware of the many skate parks that are around the city. I do find it somewhat unfortunate that it's considered necessary to have, or at stage perhaps to consider one in the Burnside area when skate parks themselves are not necessarily going to be an activity area of the future for our youth. It certainly has had its moments. It certainly is an Olympic sport, skating. However, I don't think it's necessary that we outlay and consider the huge expenditure for something that may in fact not, particularly in this area, may not have been much use to the youth.
Councillor Cornish.
Thank you very much for coming in, and thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to, I suppose, ask you a question regarding, obviously the motion that we've got is to put money in next year's budget to do a feasibility study. So it's pretty hard for the staff to actually start doing any work, including community consultation, when they've got no budget to do so, and they can only do that after 1 July. So would there be a better way in future, rather than perhaps a 6-month drawn-out process of an idea that a councillor brings to the chamber to put in next year's budget? Is there a better way to manage that, to maybe get the feasibility study done first in the financial year you're in, or so we can actually go out and do community consultation?
Excuse me, order please.
So we can actually do some community consultation, because the staff are pretty hampered where they can't spend a cent going out and speaking to anyone because the budget's not approved until next financial year. Does that make some sense?
There's some sense in that, but I would also put forward that as councillors you have a reasonable access to providing information to and accessing information from the residents of Burnside. I would consider it not a too onerous task for you councillors to actually inquire of the residents through the media that is already available as to whether such a project would be worth considering.
Councillor Dawes.
My next question, if I can, you mentioned that we're obviously in a financial issue. Are there any other projects in the draft budget that you think we should also get rid of? No, I'm just trying to get some input here about other projects that we might be wasting our money on.
And I thank you for the opportunity to do that, but no, I have not done that. I particularly focus on this one activity. Thank you.
Councillor Dawes?
David, thank you. Over here.
Yes, sir.
I think you said, just want to make sure that I've written it down, and please tell me if I've got it wrong, but you said the Will Park is not an activity area of the future. Is that what you meant to have said? I just want to get that. Can you tell me why you're saying that? I'd like to know your reasons.
Because if you consider the lifestyle of yourself when you're a child, teenager, the changes that have occurred and will continue to occur with regards to what activities, what interests are and will be available to young people. I think we should bear in mind that spending huge amounts of money on something that, again, I consider to be readily available. I'm not saying get rid of the skate parks that are here, but I don't see that it will be important to add another skate park to what we already have, because I don't see it as being an essential and necessary activity for councils to support in a constructive way in the future.
Thank you.
Councillor Harvey?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, David, for coming in this evening and giving us once again another very comprehensive deputation. We know that the skate park has been rejected in Newland Reserve and Kensington Gardens Reserve in the past, and now it's being targeted for Linden Avenue Reserve. I know the residents, including yourself, have put hours and hours of work in alerting the community to this feasibility study, and I know that there has been thousands of flyers printed at not council's expense, but the community's expense. And I'm just wondering if you can please confirm that it is your group that have funded the printing of all the flyers that have gone out to alert the residents.
All I can say is that that is my understanding, is that Bob essentially has provided, yes, all of the flyers and therefore the funding for that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I believe it's Bob and other residents as well, so it has certainly been a community effort which I just commend everybody for, so thank you.
Councillor Hallett?
Thank you. Hi, David. Thank you for coming in. I just wanted to ask you, did you used to ride a bike when you were a young person?
Yes, I did.
Excuse me, no comments, thank you.
And did your children ride bikes?
Yes, indeed.
And so have you looked at photographs of small pump tracks, permanent pump tracks, to look at what they actually look like, whether they impact on trees, how big they are? Have you looked at photos of those types of facilities?
The only pump track that I have observed is the one at the bottom of Linden Avenue, that one, and when it has been in other locations around. And what I observed is that bicycles, in particular, as you mentioned, bicycles, are used by very young children under supervision, most of the time, well, all of the time, I would assume. And interestingly enough, some of the bicycle riding is actually on the pump track, but what I've observed is that most of the bicycle riding, per se, by the smaller children is actually around. And I do wonder, and have wondered, if the pump track itself does provide an interesting obstacle to cycle around rather than something to ride on. And I haven't seen any teenagers riding currently in that pump track area, and I'm not sure if it's even something that they would even consider.
Thank you, that's all I wanted to ask.
Okay.
Councillor Jones?
You'll be able to hear me anyway. David, thanks for coming. There's lots of Olympic sports that Burnside Council doesn't cater for.
Really?
Look, if we gave the skate park the flick, how would you feel about a beach volleyball court? What about an archery range?
No, that would be totally inappropriate, archery range, I can assure you of that. And a beach volley court, I think, quite honestly, is far better at the beach.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Turnbull.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Hello, thanks for coming in. Have you driven past some of the other skate parks in the metropolitan area?
Yes,
They were mentioned, West Terrace, Ridge Park, Paradise. And
Yes.
have you seen many people using them?
Yes, and on some occasions, very few. Which is why I don't consider that it's important that we have one, because I cannot imagine that there would be people, young people, old people, lining up to use the skate park, because I think it's a huge amount of money for a fairly small group.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in. We'll now move to the next deputation. Mr. Frank Banks.
Ma'am, my name is Frank Banks. I live in Erindale. I'm very involved with sport. I'm a sports trainer. I'm an American football referee. I'm a gymnastics judge and gymnastics coach. At the end of this year, when St Peter's Girls starts to pull down their old sports hall, there will not be a single gymnastics club in what you could call Adelaide's eastern suburbs. The nearest one will be a small one at Newton, and an even tinier one at Ashton, Summertown sort of area. This council doesn't do well with sport. I'm pleased to see that you've recently got a youth officer, but a youth officer isn't a sports officer. I think council really needs to get a sports officer. This council has done historically so badly, I think, with sporting infrastructure and green space, that we actually have a threat to property values. Because if you live in this area, you will travel out of this area for most of your sporting involvements, either kids, parents, grandparents. We're not doing ourselves any favours at all. Now, I appreciate that council doesn't actually own any significant land that it could build any sort of sports on. So I imagine somewhere in the not too distant future, the state and federal governments are going to help council do something a bit like Pembroke and buy up some existing housing to create the free space. I've not had really anything to do with the Wheel Park, but I just find it staggering that people are so frightened of a feasibility study. Yeah, thank you.
Excuse me. We didn't interrupt the others. We don't interrupt anyone, okay? That's a fair rule for all.
Council's been able to look after some traditional sports fairly well. I think cricket, rugby, lawn bowls, tennis probably are fairly well looked after. Other traditional sports though, things like grass hockey, no. Couldn't find them anywhere. We have a problem in this council area. And if you choose to live here, you have to travel outside Burnside. And I would hate to be one of the councils surrounding Burnside, because they're forever having to cope with Burnside residents coming into their patch using their facilities. I don't get it. And I really would encourage council to look at being able to fund a sports officer. And I think council probably really needs to get together something a bit like Sport SA, just for the Burnside Council area, where the members would come from sports that currently exist in the area and sports that would like to exist in the area. Like, we've got some netball clubs, but we don't have really any basketball or indoor netball, because we just don't have any indoor sporting facilities. So yeah, I don't get why people are so worried about a feasibility study. Out of the feasibility study, we'll learn plenty of other things for other proposals for skate parks that will inevitably come. Thank you very much.
Any questions of the Deputy? Councillor Toom.
Hello, Mr Bates. My question is, do you think the private schools in the city of Burnside should encourage the use of their sport facilities?
I most certainly do. I've spoken to council on that very topic a couple of years ago, unsuccessfully. But even they just don't have a whole lot of indoor and outdoor sporting infrastructure. Council needs to somehow stand up, and it just hasn't. Probably for 170 odd years. You know, there's never been the land put aside so that we can have some decent sporting facilities. This is why I'm thinking we need the state and federal government to come up with the money for us to do a Pembroke and say, okay, we're going to buy that land and we're going to put some sporting facilities in there.
Councillor Jenny.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Frank, for coming in tonight. And I'll probably be finding your email and having a chat, because I am the Secretary of the South Australian Road Runners Club. We are the biggest road running club in South Australia. We host the we host the biggest marathon and the second biggest event beside the City to Bay, and it is incredibly difficult working alongside councils. Now, you suggest we need to work better with federal and state and councils all working together?
Somehow, as I said, somehow Burnside has grown with inadequate provision for sporting facilities or green space of any sort. I'm also on the Hills Environment Centre that gets about 30% of the Green Adelaide's money towards, and we don't do a lot in Burnside, bad us. I think that we're going to have to go and acquire some property, just like Pembroke has quite successfully done, so that we can set up some adequate indoor and outdoor sporting facilities.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey. Sorry. I missed. Councillor Henschke was next.
Thank you very much for raising, highlighting this problem. I've heard people say, yes, they drive out the area for netball, etc., and there is a demand. Are you aware of the open space layer work that the administration are doing. We're studying, it's a very strategic overlay over the whole of the city of Burnside, looking at all the open space, all the pockets of land, what it's used for, and then out of that saying, prioritise it. All the info's on the website, but that's the planning, part of the city master plan work. Are you aware of that? And it'd be great for your input in that.
I'm part of Burnside Foresters, so I get to
Excellent.
do all sorts of things.
So we're trying to...
But one of the things we kind of really need is some contiguous land. It's no good just having a quarter acre here or 1,000 square metres there. I've actually been wondering why aren't governments acquiring a lot of the church halls and churches that are being sold off. At least nobody's actually living there right now. But then we're going to need to come up with some method to be able to consolidate those bits of land. The little pocket parks are really important. My boss's boss, when he was speaking earlier, was saying that nobody should be more than 300 metres from a park. And that you get that from pocket parks. But we just don't have a whole lot of large parks. What have we got? We've got three. We've got Hazelwood Park, we've got Kensington Reserve, and we've got Kensington Gardens. I always get those two names mixed up, but
thank you.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for coming in this evening. You mentioned that Burnside doesn't do well with sport. It seems every park cannot be for everyone. I recall when residents were against a wheel park in Kensington Gardens Reserve, and a resident asked the Mayor and councillors that supported a skate park, could he have a wave pool in Kensington Gardens Reserve because his son wanted to surf. He wanted to learn to surf. You say we don't do well with sport. However, are you aware that we have cricket champions, we have tennis champions, we have baseball champions, we have bowling champions, we have rugby champions, and I'm sure there are lots of others that I have forgotten. Are you aware of this?
I certainly am, ma'am. I go to the men's breakfast at the baseball club, and you're talking about sports that I acknowledge are well catered for. Rugby union, bowls, I didn't say baseball, but yeah. But we've got plenty of other traditional sports where, for some reason, when land was available 100, 150 years ago, it wasn't set aside for those sports. There was a local government association survey that I came across on ABC radio. I think it was about 7 years ago. It could have been as long as 10. And basically, Burnside Council had the lowest ratio of green space and sporting facilities of any council in South Australia. We simply have not set aside the land, and it is affecting property prices because people have to travel. People cannot do the sports they want to do without significant travel.
I'm really concerned about the time. It is now after 8:30 and we haven't even got through all of the deputations yet. So unless you are desperately needing to ask this question, Councillor Turnbull and Councillor Harvey, I would really like to move to the next deputation.
I'd happily meet with any councillors.
At some other time, you chat? Okay, thank you very much, Thank you for coming in, Mr Banks. And we will move to the next deputation, which is from Evan Mitchell. If you'd like to just introduce yourselves as you're sharing this deputation.
My name's Emily Mitchell and I live in Tusmore.
And my name is Evan Mitchell. I also live in Tusmore.
Thank you for letting us speak tonight. I've lived most of my life in the city of Burnside and I'm enjoying raising my 1- and 4-year-old here. Our 4-year-old Charlie loves riding his bike on the pump track. It is an excellent way to spend time outside as a family, build gross motor skills and meet other children. Over the past couple of years, we have travelled to various locations so that he can use it, including the Civic Centre, Newland Park and Simons & Simons Reserve. A permanent skate park in the city of Burnside would be far superior to the pump track. We have been aware and supportive of Skate the East leading the push for a skate park in the Burnside Council area for years. We were excited to hear about the feasibility study regarding Linden Avenue Reserve as a potential location. We feel that our voices need to be heard today due to the misinformation and unfounded anger about this feasibility study. While I know there are skate parks in other council areas, as a working doctor with 2 children, it isn't convenient to travel to these other areas frequently. We use them occasionally on weekends and during the holidays. However, we can often get to the wading pool and other local playgrounds as it's easy to drop in after kindy or work. A skate park would provide a different activity close to home in our local area.
When we heard about the feasibility study for Linden Avenue Reserve, we were looking forward to the results. We had assumed that if the site was deemed suitable, that we could voice our support in the community consultation process. We did not think that we would have to speak up at this early stage to purely proceed with the feasibility study. However, we've been made aware that residents have been voicing their opposition against even completing a study. If a feasibility study shows it can't be done, then that's the end of it. At least we've had a real conversation instead of shutting it down prematurely. All of the concerns that have been raised about traffic, power, the impact on local businesses or the environment will all be looked at as part of the study. We should be relying on expert analysis, not speculation. I work with numbers, so I had a bit of a look into a few. The Burnside district is made up of 47,800 residents. The petition to dismiss a feasibility study has approximately 833 signatures. This is less than 2% of total residents. To provide some contrast, in 2023, Burnside Primary School had 676 students. Linden Park Primary School had 960 students. Rose Park Primary, 487 students. Glenunga International High School has 2,300 students. Nord High School has 1,700 students. Marriottville High School has a further 1,700 students, of which a portion come from the Burnside Council area. Not counting any private schools, that's still over 7,500 young people in the Burnside Council area. Now, I haven't taken a clipboard and asked for signatures, but I would bet that the vast majority of them are not going to oppose the construction of facilities that will provide them and their peers with the opportunity for physical activity and social interaction. What about the parents of these 7,500 children? How many of them are going to oppose their kids being able to spend time outside in a safe and engaging environment? No, I don't have a petition tonight and I don't have all of those people here with me because the people who support this have full and busy lives. They aren't going out of their way to seek out and sign petitions, especially those that disadvantage other demographics within our community. They aren't here because they're busy at home, they're cooking dinner and they're putting their children to bed.
There seems to be a great fear from those opposed to having a skate park that it will attract vandals and misbehaving youth. These are unfounded myths. If these people spent any time at the newer skate parks, such as Paradise, they would see well-behaved children being active. They would see teenagers teaching younger kids tricks, kids and parents encouraging each other to try new things, and people of all ages having fun outside. I don't want our children to be adults by the time Burnside builds a skate park. This debate has been going on for years and will continue until one is built. And as soon as construction is finished, the complaints will cease and people will realise that there is nothing to worry about and that we have done something that the kids of Burnside will enjoy for decades to come. Thank you for listening.
Councillor David.
Thank you very much for coming along tonight to present your view. You're very keen on a skate park or pump track, a permanent one. Would you think it much more suitable to go into Tusmore Park?
Yeah, I would be supportive of Tusmore Park or Kensington Gardens Reserve. We loved the pump track when it was at Newland Park. That was a beautiful spot for it. I'm worried that it feels a little bit like people of Burnside have a not in my backyard attitude to it. And that's what I worry about with so many sites being put up. But none being successful. But I agree, a big park would be a really nice spot for one.
Councillor Jones?
Yeah, look, thank you for coming. Councillor Davey preempted my question because I'm not opposed to a skate park, just a skate park in this stupid location. So if you were to gather a petition for a skate park in Tusmore Park, I think it would be warmly received by this council.
If there are no...
I mean,
Sorry,
I suppose, Tusmore Park is almost in our backyard. We would be prepared to have it there. I suppose being a doctor and working in finance with two very young kids, it's a push for us to be able to come up with a petition. And that's why I suppose we're supportive of just the normal process. Like, although obviously there's concerns about the Linden Avenue Reserve location, it seems like normal process for the council to put forward a feasibility study for somewhere. And of course that's going to cost money out of the budget. I don't think anyone should object to sort of new developments that are good for the people of Burnside. So I would just encourage that.
Well, can I ask my second question then? Yes. Were you aware that council has in fact done 2 extensive studies of every single reserve in Burnside, and not once did this location come up in the top locations and had just been plucked out of thin air by a secret cabal who are hell-bent on putting a skate park there?
To respond to
although
that,
there was applause at that, that was a totally inappropriate comment to make. There's not been any secret cabal whatsoever.
I would
Next
question...
If there are no further questions...
May I respond to that?
Yes, of course, sorry.
I would question the comprehensiveness of 2 studies which did not propose a location which is currently being used without significant problems.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for coming in. We'll now move to the last deputation, which is from Sam Walsh.
Hello, my name is Sam Walsh and I live in Kensington Gardens. So I've grown up most of my life in Burnside. I've tried traditional sports and I ultimately loved anything that has wheels, so skateboards, bikes and scooters. It would be great to have a local wheel park area that can be used for people who ride skateboards or ride scooters or bikes, and to practice those skills when you're a kid. I've been following Skate the East and how long that they have been trying to get a skate park in Burnside for. I feel that they have, well, my generation has missed out. We haven't had the opportunity to practice bike skills or have any, an area to work on our skills. I love the independence of riding and the fact that it's not a traditional sport. The current location of the feasibility study is good. It's easy to get to, it's easy to see, it's central in the council area, and there is public transport access, and there's also food if people need to get that nearby. The age group that the wheel park would cater for is from kids who are 4 to 15 years old, and anyone older can independently access other parks in the state. I just wanted to come tonight and remind council that there are residents who, I'm older now, but younger kids who do enjoy riding bikes and riding scooters and skateboards, and just an opportunity to not leave those people out. Thank you for listening.
Councillor Turnbull.
Thanks for coming in. You're very brave. Did you know that the City of Burnside has 69 tennis courts, which is a lot? Would you consider some of those in a group should be reallocated and made into a skate park, perhaps?
Perhaps. I haven't, I don't know a lot about that topic, but yeah, if there's available space, then potentially. But yeah, it's a lot, and those tennis courts have been used to have the pump track around, and that's worked out quite well. So, but also, yeah, this area, yeah, there needs to be a feasibility study to work out if it is a good location to have it. So, but yeah, that could be another option as well. I'm not quite sure.
All right, there aren't any. Sorry, Councillor Jennings, I'll just let you do yours then.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Thank you very much, Sam, coming in tonight and giving us your opinion. There is a lot of tennis courts, and we have heard from the gentleman before that Burnside, although it's a very tree-filled area, we are lacking sporting facilities. Do you think this area is the best place for this skate park?
So I can't comment on that. I don't know, to be honest. Don't know.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I've asked you not to. That's the second time I've asked you not to call out like that, Mr. Whoever you are sitting there. Now,
I'm a resident and I'm very concerned about having a skate park in a car park.
all right. The point has been made by the group. I do not want to get any more comment. It is time for you to leave, I think.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Yes, it is. Or sit down at the back where you're not going to be calling out.
well, if we can talk about something that's
Thank you, Sam.
Thank
You, Sam, very much for coming in, and I appreciate the courage you had to be here. Thank you. Now we are going to move to the petitions.
Excuse me, Mayor. Excuse me, Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Daly.
I just wanted to move. I believe there was another petitioner, a deputation application that was made by Dr. Becky Jeans, who applied to make a deputation tonight. That would have been I believe, opposing the skate park in Linden Park Reserve. That would have made 3 for and 3 against. Can I move that Dr. Jeans be heard in a deputation tonight?
So I'll second that.
We have a mover and a seconder.
I'll second it.
But I'm going to have to go with the voting of the group. So all of those in favour? Sorry, all of those in favour of hearing the 6th deputation. I'm really concerned about the time that we have, because we haven't even got to our draft financial plan, and we have a number of other issues. But all right, so we have 6 people who wish to hear the deputation. 7, all right, so then we will hear from Dr. Jeans. And the reason that I did refuse initially is because Dr. Jeans did speak at the last council meeting on exactly the same topic, and we had 5, and that is our normal cut-off point, is 5. It wasn't about being equal one way or the other. I didn't even know which way 1 or 2 of these people were going to actually even be supporting or not supporting. So is Dr. Jeans here? Yep. All right, then Dr. Jeans, you can come forward.
I'm Rebecca Jeans of Hazelwood Park. Your Worship and Councillors, I'm going to be able to abridge this talk, lucky for you, because Bob's actually covered quite a lot of the issues that I was going to cover in answering some of your questions. Most people are aware of the Hippocratic oath doctors take when joining the profession. The best known piece of advice from Hippocrates is first do no harm, an excellent philosophy that should be applied to all jobs, including yours. With this in mind, let's explore your proposition to put a wheel or skate park at Linden Reserve. Firstly, and with thanks, the number of people who signed our petition was overwhelming. It's your role as councillors to listen to the community, and it's a no from us. Petitions opposing wheel parks at other sites and wards have carried weight, and we expect the same consideration. On to safety. Your own pump track research deemed Linden Reserve unsuitable, largely due to proximity to a major road. Pump track users are mainly supervised and safe. It will be the older, unsupervised, risk-taking, impulsive males, and my son was one for 4 years, so don't try to tell me that they're not, running to meet a mate or away from trouble or police, who are at risk of becoming roadkill. A skate park needs a buffer zone around it to be safe, not direct access to a major road. You have been warned. Residents need an even larger buffer zone to protect them from noise nuisance and reduce the risk of being impacted by disorderly conduct that will inevitably occur. My son contributed that the council are foolish, not his adjective, if they don't think there's going to be trouble at a skate park. Not all the time, I know, but there will be blow-ins from other areas who will hang at night, a warm summer night, still. You don't need to have lighting because there's plenty of ambient lighting. If you go down and have a look, there'll be trouble. It's completely unacceptable to inflict this disruption and no doubt property devaluation on nearby households. Council's meant to play a role in supporting local business, and some of you are of the opinion it's not up to council to provide parking for business, but this reserve is primarily serving residents to enable safe parking for access to businesses or occasional bus trip into the city. Street parking is increasingly difficult to find. As a local GP, I'm privileged to know quite a cross-section of our older population and their various comorbidities. If you are unable to move quickly and maybe have to manage a walking aid, you cannot wrestle with street parking, and safe parking is essential. Many are mourning the imminent loss of Rustic Gourmet, a fabulous asset for 11 years with older individuals as their main patrons. Do not underestimate the role that this cafe has played in community connection. So removing the reserve creates more barriers for our older population. It chips away at their independence, narrows down options and lives. The 2021 census population for data for Burnside showed that most age groups in Burnside had experienced an increase over the previous 5 years, but the most significant increases were in the 70 to 84-year-old age bracket, and that 75 to 84-year-old bracket were forecast to have one of the more significant increases in the 5 years to 26. Young people have a lot of options. 75 to 84-year-olds are unlikely to make noise and they need more consideration. So I think issues around safety of the trees have been dealt with by Bob, and also the traffic problems that will be created by the closing of the lower end of Linden Avenue. I want to make a mention of emergency services because I think that closing a major thoroughfare could have a particular impact on them. So if you persist in the pursuit of this project, despite enormous community opposition, there must be absolute transparency in the process. We will not be the dumping ground for a facility that has been repeatedly rejected at other sites and wards, with abundance of evidence as to why building on that site's unsuitable. So I understand that some of you want a skate park, but it's a wish list and that's irrelevant to the unsuitability of this project at Linden Reserve. Hippocrates would be turning in his grave.
Councillor Dawes.
Rebecca, I went down Oaklands Road, down to Warradale, to pick up something, and I saw a wheel park. Now, Oakland Road is quite a busy road. Now, I think it's the city of Marion. I'm not not certain about that. But I haven't heard of any safety issues there. Are you aware of any?
At Oaklands Park?
Yeah, the one at Oaklands Park.
What, so you're saying
no, Oaklands Road,
you're
sorry.
saying it's on a major road?
Major road.
What sort of fencing have they got around it?
No fencing at all. So,
and no buffer zone?
No. So
well, it's interesting because your own council research deemed that site, Linden Avenue, to be unsuitable because of slope, which is obviously going to involve problems in building, because a pump track and what you're proposing, a wheel pack.
But you're not answering my question.
Yeah, so
my question was...
No, I don't know if
you haven't heard of anything like that?
Parks have been
any
hit by
issues
a
there?
car, but all I know is that if you go and look at what makes a good skate park, it's to be an open space. Also to mitigate the nuisance to neighbours. I mean, who would want a skate park right next to their house? And it is immediately adjacent to a home. Who wants to walk past what would have to be an accessible public toilet every morning at the end of their street? Not me with my dogs, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dawes. Next one is Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Becky, for coming in tonight, and I'm pleased that you have been allowed to speak, as it is your right. Would you agree that residents are fed up with council's reckless spending when we are in $25 million debt? We keep hearing it's only a feasibility study, but it's only costing $40,000. Even if they say it's only $40,000, that's another $40,000 into the budget. So would you agree that residents that you have spoken to, that have spoken to you, that have emailed you, are fed up with council's reckless spending?
Absolutely, and council seems to think that 40,000 is petty cash, which I assume is how you got into the financial mess that you're in. But on talking to residents when I was out and about with my petition, I'd have to say that the most positive, and these are the people who signed it, obviously not the people who want a skate park, and I understand that people want a skate park, but really, you know, it is safe to cross the median strip of Glen Osmond Road. You're only just out of Burnside. So I'd have to say that the most positive response I got was derision, and it was pretty much downhill from there. And people are very concerned about the expenditure. We've had one of the biggest rate rises of any council, and we certainly can't absorb any more, you know, because cost of living is hitting everybody.
Thank you, Becky.
Thank you very much. I'm going to stop there because I'm very concerned about the time. Thank you very much to all the deputies. We do need to deal with the petition now. So 10.3. I haven't got the page reference. 8.1. No, it's not. We need a motion to. Yes, page 27. Councillor Davey, you're moving the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'm moving that the petition containing 833 valid signatures conforming to council's requirements has been received, and that the petition's been made available to us on the council members portal. The petition seeks that council does not endorse a proposed budget of $40,000 to undertake a study to assess the feasibility of a wheel park or any other type of pump or skate park at the Linden Avenue Reserve in Hazelwood Park. They believe that the feasibility study would consider the conversion of a small section of Linden Avenue to community land. The wheel park is likely to be incompatible or have a negative impact on the existing tree space and environment in and around the reserve. The street conversion of Linden Avenue and use of the wheel park could cause detriment to the residents and established businesses, potentially lowering the value of those properties, as we've heard. There would also be traffic diverted into neighbouring narrow residential streets, and there would be limited accessibility to established businesses and properties by increasing traffic volumes and decreasing available parking. So I commend this petition to you. Thank you.
Seek a seconder? Councillor Harvey, you're seconding?
Yes, I am.
All those in favour of accepting the petition? Those against? Division's been called. Sorry, yeah. I think there's some confusion, so I'm going to ask our governance. I think there's some confusion, so I'm going to ask the governance to explain what's being voted on, because I think there's some unsurety or confusion.
Through the Mayor, just to clarify, the motion is before you. The Council receives the petition. Councillor Davey, sorry to speak for you, was just reading what was in the petition. So it's what's on the screen.
So it's just accepting the petition and the statements that are in that petition. All right? Sorry?
Yeah, we'll move it again.
I'll do the vote again, all right? Those in favour, I'm sure, hopefully everyone's clear, of receiving the petition as it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 11. Okay, those against?
Division.
One division's been called, so all those who voted in favour, please stand. It's basically everyone except Councillor Hallett, so Councillor Hallett voted against. Councillor Henschke, Cornish, Harvey, Zing, Davey, Hubel, Jones, Jennings, Wilkins, Dawes and Turnbull voted for, and just Councillor Hallett against. Thank you. Motion was carried. I'm going to go through the reports, but I'm also going to suggest that we do move. We do bylaw, well, depending on whether or not it's withdrawn, we do 11.1 and then we go straight to 11.7, because 11.7 must be done tonight, and looking at the lateness of the hour, it is important that we do that. 11.1, is there anyone who wishes to withdraw 11.1? Councillor Henschke, right, thank you.
Yep. Move with the officer's recommendation.
Oh, you're moving with the officer's recommendation?
Yeah, but I'd like to just quickly speak to it.
No, not
right.
if you want to speak, you have to withdraw.
Yeah.
All right? So if you are just moving the officer's recommendation,
No.
I'll take that as a movement, otherwise you're withdrawing.
I'm withdrawing,
Right,
thank you.
Thank you. Heritage Reference Group Review. Anyone wish to withdraw it? Otherwise, I seek a mover. Oh, sorry, Councillor Jennings. Sorry? Oh, we do too. Sorry, we do. We have to do that one as well, if we get to it tonight. Okay. So that one's withdrawn by Councillor Jennings. All right. Review of community access, inclusion and participation. Councillor Jones, are you withdrawing it or are you moving?
I'm withdrawing.
Advocacy plan. Councillor Davey, are you moving?
Withdrawing.
Withdrawing. Feasibility study, new water activities. Councillor Turnbull, are you moving it or you wish to debate it?
I wish to bring it out. Let's talk about it.
Yes. Leasing and licensing community facilities policy review. Councillor Turnbull. Draft annual business plan and budget. Councillor Davey. Schedule of fees and charges. I seek a mover. Councillor Zing.
Yeah, I'd like to
You're
move, Mayor.
moving. Seconded by Councillor Cornish. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Finance end of month report. Seek a mover. Councillor Jennings, seconded Councillor Zing. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Finance Policies Review. Councillor Jones? Withdrawing. Mayor's Report. Seeker Mover, Councillor Henschke, you're moving. Seconded by Councillor Zing. All those in favour? Against? Motion's carried. Chief Executive Officer's Report. Seeker Mover. Councillor Zing. Councillor Jennings seconding. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Right, so we will have, I am recommending we have a 10-minute break now before we move into... And
I so move.
Oh, sorry, yes. We need, apologies, we have a lawyer here who's here to answer questions, and he's been here the whole evening. And because the 11.1 has been withdrawn for debate, we need to deal with that first and then have the break. So, yes. So it's about bylaws. Okay. Councillor Henschke, you're going to speak to this motion to move it or make an amendment, whatever you...
Thank you, Mayor. I wish to move with the officer's recommendation, but I do want to make a comment on, in particular, the bylaw regarding movable signs. While some councils in Australia permit movable signs on footpaths, including heritage areas, they impose strict regulations to preserve heritage values and ensure public safety. And this bylaw we have before us has a number of strict regulations and implicitly preserving heritage values and public safety. Further, in New South Wales, it's stronger again. The Planning and Environment Department there stipulates signs must not be located on any heritage item or within a heritage area. Now, that's really a strong requirement for sandwich boards, advertising material, not to be displayed on state heritage, local heritage, on our streets in heritage areas. So I just wanted to flag that with the Chamber, that in our established neighbourhood zones with a heritage overlay, we have seen change of use from homes to businesses, and businesses can operate within a home as well, 1 room, 2 rooms, but just flagging that these homes that have completely changed use, or these homes with a business in them, can, under our bylaw, still put up a sandwich board at the front of their home. In our ward, we have seen opposition to this. Residents saying, well, don't like the idea of, this sandwich boards on our street. We could, in future, foreshadow a motion which it could happen through our policy to prohibit sandwich boards in established neighbourhood zones, which we have a number of in the city, just if it becomes a problem. So I will move with the officer's recommendation, but I just wanted to flag that it could be a problem for some residents. Thank you.
Councillor Wilkins, are you seconding?
Yes, I'm very happy to second
Okay,
that.
thank you. Do you wish to speak right now? Just wondering if there is any response from administration in relation to Councillor Henschke's comments.
Through the Chair, this is dealt with within the bylaw. It's rather complicated now from the perspective of section 226A of the Local Government Act dealing with federal and state election signs, etc. But essentially, council can really prohibit these sorts of things from certain areas based upon amenity factors, given that the bylaw allows permits to be given on certain circumstances, but generally speaking, councils in South Australia, it's very narrow. When you look at the bylaw itself, the placement, it must actually stay outside the business itself during certain hours, and the staff normally would simply just deal with that through the issuing of permits or not.
Any further questions or comments? Debate on this? Otherwise, Councillor Wilkins, if you wish to speak, now's the time.
Thank you, I will. Through you, Madam Mayor, to the staff, do you have a problem? Have we discovered there is a problem with movable signs in the city?
Through their worship, it's not a problem to speak of.
No.
We do have adequate provisions in the bylaw as it stands to ensure that there's an orderly display of signs on public roads. So the provisions relate to the placement of signs, the number of signs per business, and the design of signs. So in our view, the bylaw is an adequate bylaw and is able to, and allows us to properly control that issue.
The current one enables you to properly control?
The current one, yes, it does, and there's some minor amendments to it, but it's not to answer the question.
Yeah.
It's not a big problem for us to deal with because of the way the bylaw is currently constructed. Yes. It allows us to do our job perfectly well.
Once again, is there some jurisdiction that you have over size, design, shall I say, the appropriateness of the sign? Do you have that interface with the business owner who wants to advertise their business?
Through the Mayor, so there is an interplay between the Local Government Act and the Planning Development Infrastructure Act.
Yeah.
So the system allows for businesses to have one sign.
One sign.
Per business.
Yeah.
It needs to be out the front of that particular business.
Yes.
And located not to clutter up the footpath and obstruct the footpath. And we find that the bylaw works well.
And our rangers would be on top of that if they noticed something. Is it the rangers who do the observation?
Yes, it is. So the rangers will act upon complaint, but also upon proactive. Being on main roads, they're sort of more visible than some other things, so they are able to take some proactive action in relation to movable signs.
Great, thank you very much. I'll support.
Councillor Court.
Just a question, if I can. Are any of our bylaws not needed? I'm just doing an assessment in terms of whether or not they're needed, they're used. How do we compare to actual other councils? Other councils looking at introducing bylaws for different areas that we're not getting on top of, or there's a trend? I'm just sort of looking at that sort of helicopter sort of view. And obviously a lawyer would see a lot of them, I'd imagine.
Through the Mayor, I may ask Paul to comment in a minute, but in terms of our bylaws, probably the only one we haven't used is number 7. The lodging houses one, we've certainly had complaints about some, but every alleged lodging house we've found hasn't come out of the bylaws, so we haven't had cause to use it. The other ones we do use to varying degrees. The only other potential bylaw that may come to us inevitably in some form is the cat bylaw. But that's not for debate tonight. If that does come, that'll be a completely separate exercise. Okay, thank you. Not sure what you want to add to that. But.
Through the chair, not often that I get to correct Magnus, but you use all the bylaws. A lot of councils don't, but we did. And my point is here that having it sit there do nothing is also handy, because on one occasion, last month or the month before, we had cause to use the lodging houses, and a correspondence was sent, and it was appropriate as a once-off. But it doesn't particularly matter if it's not used that much. It can be used if a problem occurs.
Councillor Hallett.
I just wanted to say that I also think that in regard to movable signs, that they're going to become more of a problem in the future particularly in regard to people working from home. And I noticed when I was driving in today, I was going down Stratton Borough and there was a sandwich board out the front of the house and it had fallen sideways. But yeah, it was a good example of how, you know, we could have a proliferation if we don't keep our eye on it. I'm not saying that I think the bylaw needs to be changed at this point, but I think it could be a problem in the future.
Councillor Davey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. I also have a problem with, or a concern about movable signs and their proliferation in our suburbs and how we manage that. My particular concern, it's the ones that have just been mentioned, but also the horrible floaty banner ones, the Bali ones that are just, unfortunately, that Norwood, our adjacent councils use, and people think they can put up in Burnside. Are we managing those all right, and does this cover management or banning of those? And do we need to do more communication about that? And then I have a question about cats, if I may.
Through the Mayor, the proposed additions to the bylaw make it easier for us to deal with banners. There's a new clause in top with the heading banner in the movable signs bylaw, which simply says that a person must not erect or display a banner on a building or structure on a road without our permission. And clause 9 gives us some clear direction and powers in relation to removing those signs. So the bylaw is an improvement in that particular area.
Thank you. And could I just ask about cats? I believe Tea Tree Gully have introduced some new bylaws for cat containment. Are we considering going down that track or making any sort of provision for owned cats and improving the registration and microchipping and containment of them?
Through the chair, at this stage, no, we don't have any active plans to introduce it. Our strategy at this point was to wait for the state government's review of the state legislation in relation to cats and dogs, to analyse what gaps that might leave when it's done. So at this stage, it's a wait and see game.
Through the Mayor, I may add to that, Councillor Davies. I've spoken to Nicole Halsey, who's from URPS, and they're undertaking a big, I think, consultation on behalf of Deputy Premier Susan Close and the Dog and Cat Management Board. So I think there was a commitment in the last election that they would undertake this, and they're beginning to run out of time. So they are looking to make some changes. I think it's going to be a buyer beware for us, because while individual councils have undertaken bylaws, they've found them very difficult to implement and unsuccessful. And I think most councils at the moment have difficulty in accessing spaces for dogs at the moment. If you were to extend it to cats, which I'm not sure how our rangers would catch them all, but that would be another problem too. So there's going to be a significant cost if there was to be changes to the state government legislation which would require bylaws. Councillor Henschke.
Thank you. I have a question for the administration through the Mayor. In the bylaw on banners, signs, item 12.3 and section 12, does section 12 still enable council to consider, if I foreshadowed a motion on notice, that that signs must not be located on heritage items or within a heritage area, and that we have community consultation with those communities in heritage areas and established neighbourhood zones, so that policy is one that they want or not want. As I said, in New South Wales, they've said no signs in heritage areas, no signs on a heritage item, which our bylaw doesn't do right now. So just want to make sure that Section 12 isn't going to be a showstopper.
Through the Mayor, thank you. Section 12, I believe we're talking about the movable signs bylaw, Section 12 allows the council to make resolutions to prohibit signs in particular areas. And the council could do that in a similar way that it makes resolutions about dogs on leashes under the dogs bylaw.
Right.
There are a number of resolutions that the council has made in relation to where dogs need to be on leash.
Yeah.
That's not in the bylaw itself, but it's a resolution that sort of sits next to it.
Okay, so it's enabling.
Paragraph 12 would allow the council to make resolutions about where movable signs would not be, or would prohibit the display of movable signs.
And can I ask a second minor question, please?
Yes.
Rangers, the cost for rangers to check that the sandwich boards are taken down when it gets dark, is that, you know, as time goes on and there's more and more businesses and more sandwich boards, you know, is this a cost that, well, I just want to flag, I suppose, a note that it will be a cost to take them down at night. Sorry, it's not quite a clear question, but yeah.
Thank you through the Mayor. The removal of movable signs at night is probably not a big job. We find that most businesses will appropriately take their signs in at the end of trade, day's trade. So it's not a common thing for. I mean, occasionally you might find one chained to a sign or something like that, but typically speaking, it's not a big source of work.
Thank you.
Councillor Jones?
Yeah, look, I've got a legal question about 12. Now, I understand that clarify my understanding, what you're saying is we don't need to specifically reference heritage buildings in the bylaw because under Section 12 we can pass any resolution we like to prohibit signs. But if that's got taken to court, wouldn't it be better to have the prohibition in the bylaw than us passing a motion? Because that would be stronger, because presumably we could ban all signs by resolution, but the court might say, well, clearly the intention of this bylaw is you allow some signs and you guys are just being difficult. So wouldn't it be better to have the heritage protection actually in the bylaw?
Certainly not from a court perspective and through your worship. It would need to be case by case on the basis that there are great restrictions in relation to what you can do, and you must consider when making any resolution, and it will be you making those resolutions, you will remain the puppet masters, but you can only really do it on the basis of an analysis of the safety and the suitability of a particular spot.
So to follow up that, so safety is presumably not going to be a standard issue on a heritage building? There's nothing unsafe about having a sign on a heritage building?
Well, sorry, when you say on a heritage building, near it, no one would be placing signs on heritage buildings.
Yeah, but there's unlikely to be any safety reasons why you couldn't put a sign near a heritage building per se. Is that correct?
It would depend on the case. If it's near if it creates line of sight issues, or if it creates...
That's just line of sight. That's got nothing to do with protecting heritage buildings.
No.
That could happen that could be a building built today.
Correct.
Yeah, so there's no specific protection for heritage buildings. And then you've got a question of suitability, which seems extraordinarily vague.
Well, your staff actually asked me that question, and my point was that suitability is going to come down to protecting the amenity of the locality.
Okay, so we could say the amenity of the locality requires no signs near heritage buildings.
Correct.
So why not just put that in the bylaw?
wouldn't have been able to analyse it on a case-by-case basis. The Legislative Review Committee will say, how are you going to consider on each case the road users, the safety and the suitability of it?
So to protect the heritage buildings that Councillor Henschke wants to protect, we're going to have to pass a motion for every single heritage building. Is that right?
No, you have to create a motion if evil presents itself. If a problem exists, the council staff will look at it. It doesn't happen. I've asked them that question. It doesn't appear to happen. If it did happen, they did ask me about one specific case, about a rest home. I looked at it and I can't remember what the response was, but it seemed to be suitable to place it there. But the protection of the amenity will be dealt with by your staff, generally speaking. There are these problems don't come up.
Councillor Cornish.
Just in relation to 11.17 and again movable signs, sorry, this council previously has authorised certain people to have movable signs at certain locations that aren't directly in front of their business. One that I recall is on Glenburn Road, ironing services. Everyone's pretty much driven past it all the time, but we've given them permission. Does that still roll over, or will those people have to reapply when we reappoint the bylaw?
Through your worship, it'll just keep on rolling. The permit will be based upon it'll have a sunset.
Yep.
At some point, and it'll keep going.
Keep going. Thank you.
That particular
With
business
this
is
new
gone
bylaw.
now anyway, and the sign. Really? The different business
Have
there.
to take shirts
Different business sign. Councillor Wilkins, you want
Just one question. I'm thinking I have to declare an interest in the National Trust Board, and Beaumont House being a National Trust property, when we have open days, there is a sandwich board or a sign out on the footpath saying open. And that's a case-by-case basis. It would be put out and taken back in when the afternoon is over. That, of course, would be covered within the bylaw. Am I right?
You wouldn't need to seek permission if you comply with the rest of the bylaw.
Thank you.
I'd like to put the motion now. Would you like to sum up, Councillor Henschke?
Thank you. Well, councillors, as you can hear, that it's, a bit difficult by the sound of it to have a bylaw that just says no signs in the street. I am concerned because in heritage areas, established neighbourhood zones, you're living in a street with all your neighbours, and then one day your neighbour's putting up your sandwich boards, and every day you go out your driveway and you'll see sandwich boards. Now, okay, maybe the administration can negotiate and work with that particular home and say, look, it's, not really appropriate in this area, and maybe they'll just say, okay, we won't have our sandwich board showing today, and pull it down. But it's just a little loophole. I just feel that I don't think people, when they live in the city of Burnside and expect to be living in an established neighbourhood zone, that it's about residents. It's not for businesses to be set up. And you can have a business from home, but businesses with sandwich boards are for precincts and those sort of areas. So I just feel it's going to be, if it continues, people become upset and we're going to have to do something. But for now, I guess we can, as we've heard, it's workable. So I'll leave the chamber to decide. Thank you.
Put the motion. Those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried. Now I would move that, I'll get someone to move that we have a 10-minute break. Thank you, Councillor Cornish. Second, Councillor Jennings. All those in favour? Thank you. We start at 9:43. Right. We need to, we haven't got our mover. Councillor Davey, we can do now. We are, unless anyone objects, we're going to move straight to 11.7, debate that first, and then we will go through sequentially all the others afterwards, because this one must be done tonight.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So,
Mayor.
Councillor Davey, I believe you have an alternate motion.
I have a slightly amended motion, if that could come up. Thanks.
James, would you like to give them a reminder? In there, please.
Are you talking to me?
No, James, I said.
Oh.
James. That's okay, you start, Councillor Davey.
I want the motion up. Can we have the motion? Oh, thank you.
It's coming.
Is this my amended one?
This is your amended one, yeah.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Oh, she's 8 and 9 have changed.
So I'll start. As we face a very unpredictable financial situation in this time frame, and I don't need to clarify to you what that's all about in the international, national and local sphere, I think we need to be very prudent as we plan our expenditure for the 25-26 financial year. We've done a huge amount of work on the budget, and thank you to all the staff and the administration and everybody who has contributed to the budget draft to date. However, now is not the time to be moving for a study to install a skate park in Burnside. I won't surprise you by saying this. I think quite apart from having no demonstrated need for a skate park in Burnside, with new facilities just installed in Campbelltown, on West Terrace in the city, and at Ridge Park on Glen Osmond Road, which is currently being updated. I believe it's not prudent to allocate $40,000 to determine feasibility on a little reserve which residents and local business are strongly opposed to. Further, with the current drought condition and significant loss of trees this season, even of second-year-old trees, we have lost a lot. I don't think it's appropriate to reduce our planting to fund an audit, as has been proposed. So, proposed to reduce the tree planting from 1,000 to 500 trees within this financial year, 2025 to 26, in order to fund the audit of future tree planting. I think this is just not the right approach we should be having. We can do an audit and we can fund our actual usual tree plantings. We desperately need to maintain the momentum following all of our tree losses across our city in streets, parks and home gardens to maintain our canopy. So the modifications I have made with this amendment are that we at 8 delete the feasibility study for the wheel park and delete the reduction in tree planting from 1,000 to 500 trees within the annual business plan. So I won't continue with any more ado. I think everything else is doable and manageable for us to put out to community consultation, but I really think with the huge community opposition and concern about a wheel park at Linden Avenue Reserve, it would be appropriate for us to delete it from this draft budget. So hopefully you'll support this. Thank you.
Councillor Dawes, are you seconding this?
No, I'm not going to second it, but I think that number 9 is missing from the report on page 298, which said is provided with a further report on any public submission as a result of the community consultation process. Is that, oh, it is there now, number 10. Thank you, sorry.
It should be in number 11 on the amended motion, is provided with a further report on any public submissions provided as a result of the community consultation process prior to determination of the final business plan and budget 2025-26. Do you want me to read it, what I sent through? But there should be a point 11. Oh, it's provided with a first.
I think there's no number one in your motion. You go back to the top, that should be number one. Right, and then you get the 11.
So where's the 11?
Well, go to number 2, and you see that should be number 1. Oh, there we are, now we got it.
Yeah, one was there.
Great, one's there.
One was there.
Yes, but we're missing 11.
Number 11 didn't accidentally get picked up when we transferred it over, we're just fixing it now.
Oh, thank you. Because that's the important part, to actually receive a final report after the public submissions process. Thank you.
Excuse me, the number 1 is collapsed 1 and 2 in the original report.
And then adding the 11.
I'm looking for a second. Councillor Harvey, you wish to speak?
I'll second, thank you.
But
I
you don't
reserve
wish
my
to
right.
speak now? Okay. Councillor Turnbull, do you wish to speak? Right, okay, then Councillor Jones, you wish to speak?
No, I'd like to ask a question, please.
Right.
So I'm looking at new projects, page 335 and following pages. Can you tell me what the logic is between the order that these projects have been put in and how much space they're given?
What page?
335.
Through the Mayor, Councillor Jones, there is no specific method or rationale is how big they were or what order they were.
I don't know exactly what was in the original documentation we got given.
Can I ask a supplementary question? So it's entirely random that the Wheel Park feasibility study is the first one on the list and gets a whole page, as opposed to the next item, which involves spending nearly 100 times as much and only gets half a page.
That can be, through the Mayor, yes, that is, you're correct, it was random. Through the Chair, just to add to that, depending on the outcome of this motion, obviously that would change.
Is there anyone who wishes to speak on this matter? Councillor Hubble.
I have a question, and through your worship, it is to the mover to hopefully bring up during summing up. But the deleting the tree planting or the audit of future tree planting provision, I'm just wondering whether there is an alternate plan to facilitate the audit of future tree plantings, or whether that's just being taken out completely. So I just wanted some information about that, please.
can I ask the question now? Why that was included as a late addition for the Risk and Audit Committee to consider?
All right, staff could answer that for us.
Through the worship, sorry, just to clarify your question there, Councillor Davey, you were asking why that was a late inclusion for the Auditing Committee to consider, is that correct? I don't believe that was the case. My understanding was that there was an internal audit as part of the internal audit programme on both the environmental sustainability strategy and our tree management practices. There were a number of actions identified which Dr. Phil actually talked council through at a recent workshop. This was one of them, and this was one that the Audit Committee picked out of the several actions to present or consider at council when it was presented back to council. Council endorsed at that stage, when the minutes of the Audit Committee, was to proceed with that action, which was to do an audit on all vacant tree planting locations throughout the city. What the audit said, which was discussed at the workshop, was there's actually two methods as how council can achieve that. They can either add an additional $60,000 to next year's budget and continue to planting the same amount of trees that it would normally do, the minimum of 1,000, or for 1 year reduce to 500 trees and use the existing operational budget rather than increasing the budget to fund that audit. So you can still do the audit, plant less trees and still have a net gain. When we discussed those options with those present at the workshop, there was an indication from the room that the general preference from the majority was to do it from existing budgets and not increase the budget. So still do the audit, do 500 for 1 year. Therefore, that's the recommendation put forward to you tonight.
Yes. Well, is this up now? Yes, okay. Right. Okay, thank you. We've seen tonight the overwhelming community voice their opposition to a feasibility study. 833 signatures from residents against a feasibility study and skate park. The residents have spoken. What more do you need? These residents are not only against the feasibility study, but the reckless spending of council. We know this has turned ugly with vicious accusations and threats. There is no misinformation being fed to our community, as many of us have been accused of, including residents. We, along with other councillors against this, are performing our duties as elected members that we were voted to council on. There are councillors who were voted into council for not supporting a skate park, of which I am one of them. 833 residents cannot be ignored, or their angst and outrage. They have a voice and they deserve and should be listened to. I admire and commend our community who have shown determination, dedication and stamina with all that has been thrown their way with despicable, nasty allegations. Our community was subject to this for the skate park proposal in Newland Reserve and Kensington Gardens Reserve, and now Linden Avenue Reserve. You should be ashamed of yourselves for putting our residents through this angst for a skate park. This is biased and prejudiced, and we should not have our community being subjected to this. It is unnecessary and they are fed up with it. This has been fuelled further with toxicity in council amongst council members. We are acting for the community. The community, as I said, are fed up with this ugly behaviour. As I said, 833 residents cannot be ignored. Thank you.
Thank you for your opinion. Councillor Cornish, do you wish to speak?
Yes, I will. Look, I really can't support number 10, actually. the reduction, or removing the reduction, this council spends $9.22 million every year on tree management, park management, biodiversity issues. This budget currently has another $500,000 worth of projects earmarked coming up on biodiversity, tree management, tree watering, tree projects. And we can't even reduce some trees a little bit more. We spend so much money every year on tree management in this city to the detriment of a lot of others in this council area. And I think someone needs to actually, highlight the fact that we spend a huge amount on trees, and if we need budget repair, it might be an area that we actually look at rather than putting more trees back into the budget. So I really have an issue where we're cherry picking our favourite little projects and removing some. I've got to say the deputies were very convincing tonight. I think they've done our feasibility study for us. But that's another question, even though before the council administration staff have even got a chance to open the book to start a feasibility study, it's already been done for them. But I really have an issue when we spend so much money on trees and we can't, if it's just the feasibility study and goes nowhere, it may be $11,000, $13,000 that this council spent. The rest of the $40,000 goes back into the budget. If we say no after the feasibility study comes in, I can't do it for the fact that we're letting more trees in and we're spending so much more money on trees in this council than anything else, and we're not willing to compromise and move things around. I just can't.
Can I just ask a question of Mr. Birch? What does number 10 mean financially?
Through the Mayor, as Mr Kent indicated before, putting it back up to 1,000 trees would be $60,000 additional into the budget, and it would be an operating expense, so it would reduce our surplus by that $60,000.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify what Councillor Cornish had said, but put a monetary value on it. Councillor Harvey, you need to turn your microphone off. Councillor Turnbull.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. Councillor Cornish, we are the tree council. We are the tree capital of the world, so we really need to keep up with our trees. Now, this one about reducing 1,000 to 500, at least 100 of those trees have to go and replace the dead ones up in Stonyfield and Wattle Park. They're dying by the minute. Every day you go out, there's another dead tree. So 500 trees isn't going to go very far, especially when you start replacing. And that wouldn't be the only area where there's dead trees. You drive along anywhere. Glenburn Road, all of those places, dead trees. We have to keep it up. So I say we keep in our 1,000 trees and spend the money, 60,000, so be it. Everyone else is spending money on this, that and the other. Let's spend 60,000 on an audit then, because we need our 1,000 trees desperately. And if you don't believe me, go for a drive, because it's awful. Thank you.
Councillor Hallett.
Thank you. I can't support this motion because of the deletes the feasibility study for the wheel park. Council has been accused by Councillor Harvey of reckless spending when the two key proponents of the wheel park was wanting to spend $100,000 on upgrading our computers and reconfiguring the council chamber. I just find the hypocrisy of that astounding. The community hasn't done a feasibility study. The complexity of a feasibility study, and we're not arguing about whether or not we have a skate park, we're arguing that there is a feasibility study, and a feasibility study includes engagement. The presentations tonight, and the reason why I voted not to support and not to accept the petition, was because it's, in my opinion, there are untruths in those statements or misunderstandings. So that's why I couldn't accept. I acknowledge that there are a lot of people who are concerned and there's a lot of angst in the community, but I think that has been orchestrated and unnecessarily. And there are multiple designs and ways of cutting the cloth to suit a location. And, you know, I think we have almost the same amount of old people in the community, older people, as we have young people, yet young people are continuously overlooked. So I think that we at least should spend $40,000 doing a feasibility study. Thank you.
Councillor Dawes.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I also cannot support the motion, but I want to bring up two other things not related to the motion directly. But, you know, I do disagree with Councillor Harvey on reckless spending. Look, we are in robust discussion. That doesn't mean that if you're against someone that you're despicable, ashamed and biased. They were the three words that were used. And I take exception to that. I have a different view. And there are sometimes I'm with the same thing on Councillor Harvey, but this one I'm a little bit different. So I don't take those comments lightly. Now, let me get back to what I really want to talk about. I think the Audit Committee has given us something for next year, and it's on page 308, and it's number C. Consider the need for a future review of the differential rating structure for the City of Burnside, both residential and commercial. I think that's a very strong statement for next year, and we mustn't forget it, because I think that's our next major call as regards setting rates for the future. So that's number one point. The number 2 point I want to mention is on page 308, and I know that Chris Birch was saying, I knew you were going to mention it. Is it 308? It talks about, let me just get the right one, it talks about the valuations. So 360. 360, if you go to 360, and again, I'd say it so many times, the average percentage change in valuation for the City of Burnside currently, I know it could change, is 9.13%. If your suburb is lower than that, the rate increase will be lower. If your increase in valuation is above that, then you'll be paying a higher rate than what we're going to be deciding tonight. Now, so just be aware of that. There will be some suburbs in your wards, and some of them are a bit higher than others, that are up to about 12%. Thankful my suburb this time is below 9%, but last year it was way over. So I paid a lot more than 9.8% last year, I can tell you. So I just want to add those 2 points, but I won't be supporting the motion. Thank you.
Before I go to Councillor Jones, Mr Birch, would you like to share with the Council what the Audit and Risk Committee said about those differential rates?
Yeah, through the Mayor, there was quite a lengthy conversation, I think is the word to summarise it. Interested in regards to the table that's actually on page 358. Due to the fact that this council operates with one rate in the dollar, because of the valuations, as Councillor Dawes has indicated, because we have just one rate in the dollar, we are subject to the movements within our valuations. Now, in some years, the residential valuations will move by more than the non-residential, and as indicated by Councillor Dawes, in different years the different suburbs will move by different amounts. But looking at the table on page 358, with the current valuations, and Councillor's quite correct, these will continue to be updated each week as we head closer to June. But currently a commercial office currently a commercial office is actually looking at an average reduction in their rates of $30, as opposed to a residential which is having an increase of $181. The indication from our Audit and Risk Committee was that if we actually started to use differential rating and had a different rate in the dollar for each one of our classes, we'd be able to actually ensure that every single one of the classes actually received on average the 6.95 that we're talking about in the budget.
Thank you for that. Now, Councillor Jones.
I've got a question, and it's on differential rates, please. So when we're talking differential rates, we're basically talking about charging businesses more in general, which is what most councils do. Now, my question is, if we charge businesses more, the money we raise from businesses are we free to spend it on anything we like, or does it have to be directed on additional services for business?
Good question.
Through the chair, through the mayor, it's normal that it would be going, because it's a general rate, it would be going to general revenue, so you wouldn't have to direct it to something specific. Obviously, as part of our community consultation at the introduction of this, we would need to present to the community why we're introducing it. And so if it was to be a large amount that we are targeting on one particular land use, we would want to tie it to something. But it's not like a normal separate rate where it is ring-fenced for a particular expense. It will go into our general income.
Sorry.
No, it's all right. You can...
That's all right. No, I'll supplement later.
I just remembered a comparison between a 7% and a 1% that was discussed at the audit committee, that businesses only pay 1% and residents pay 7%.
Through the mayor, I don't have my audit committee papers with me, which had all the percentages I jotted down the side, but essentially we had worked out what the increase was, and you're right, one of the classes was having about a 1% on average rate increase. And as I mentioned before, the commercial shop is having a reduction.
That might be too confusing. All right,
so I shall go through the mayor. Can I also just clarify that if the differential, we're talking about having this as part of the rating review, though,
yes,
around a differential, but there's no. It's just around. There's not collection of additional rates. It's about how they are apportioned across the different categories.
Yeah, through the mayor, thank you for making that distinction. Yes, it is. This is actually about the disbursement of the amount of rates we are raising. It's not necessarily increasing the amount that we'll collect. So there'll be an offset where if the rate in the dollar was increased in one of the non-residential sections, that the residential or other sections would be reduced. So that our target income that we're receiving would still only be the 9.65%. But yeah, it is a discussion for next year's budget, not this one.
Councillor Jennings.
Thank you. I'm not grand. I'm around? Okay. I won't be supporting the motion, and I will be hopefully moving the officer's recommendation. It's been a lot has happened tonight, and we can't. We have to go by facts and not emotion. So I'll keep it short. Thank you.
Councillor Zing.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick one maybe for sum up for Councillor Davey with item 10 as well. At the moment, your only states we're deleting the reduction from 1,000 to 500. I wonder if she needs to add in a line just to say that we maintain the current status quo as well.
Through the mayor, what's actually being proposed in the original motion is not status quo. It is basically using the funds to plant 500 trees and diverting that to undertake the audit. So it wouldn't be status quo, and Councillor Davies' motion is to reverse that.
So, Councillor Jones, you have another question, or you wish to?
No, I'm going to speak. Thank you, Mayor. Look, colleagues, there is so much wrong with this budget. We are not getting to where we thought we would be last year in the long-term financial plan because our costs have gone up, and we haven't, particularly interest costs have gone up more than we expected. And yet again, we are refusing to bite the bullet and increase rates to cover the costs. So we're not getting to the target band that we expected we were going to be. And I can see what's going to happen next year. Everyone's going to say, whew, it was so hard the last 2 years, let's not put rates up again. And we'll be back in the same mess that we've been in for so many years. So, look, so that's bad. And then I went to the public meeting last year, and it's all about, oh yeah, we're going to review our costs. And have we reviewed our costs? No, we haven't. And actually, what we have done is we've found a whole lot of new things to spend money on. Now, most of them are wholly unnecessary. Now, the most egregious, wholly unnecessary spending is on this stupid skate park in the most stupid location for a skate park ever imagined, that has never come up in our studies as a sensible place. This was covered by the former CEO. He said, if you want to reopen the skate park, put a motion in to say, let's reopen the feasibility study. And have we done that? No, we've just plucked this location out. Hey, where's it come from? I don't know. Nobody asked me. He said, Councillor Jones, where do you think that you voted for a skate park before? Where would you support one? People have magically come up with this location for it. I don't know how they did it. I can only wonder. So, look, I think the budget is terrible, and the whole thing should be voted down. However, what I particularly object to is the skate park. So, notwithstanding everything else that's terrible in Councillor Davies' motion, I'm going to support it because it's getting rid of the skate park.
Councillor Wilkin.
Thank you for the opportunity. I too will not support 40k for the feasibility study for the wheel park. I don't have a problem with a wheel park somewhere, but I do have a problem with it here at Linden Avenue Reserve. I think it's totally inappropriate. I also would be happy to just work on 500 trees and actually look after all the trees we've got within the current tree budget and don't have the 1,000 planted in a dry year. Let's just look after what we've got and fill in the gaps with the 500 and see that they're all, shall I say, supported, mulched, fertilised, watered, however often they need it, and then look at 1,000 next year. So for those reasons, I'm not going to support the budget, and I do support the deletion of the Wheel Park Linden Avenue Reserve.
Councillor Davey.
I just have a question, if I may. Just following up from Councillor Zing's suggestion, I just wanted to clarify what the status quo is currently in terms of annual tree planting. I thought it was 1,000 trees a year, and so we're reducing the status quo, and that was what my concern was. So could we please have this clarified? Thank you.
Through the Mayor, that's correct. There's an outstanding resolution that says Council will plant at least 1,000 trees per year.
Councillor Henschke.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick clarification. I keep hearing that it's $40,000 for the feasibility study, but then I note that it's $40,000 minus $10,000, which is $30,000. Is that correct? That what would be spent on a feasibility study is $30,000 once they saw the pump track? Can I just have that clarification from the administration? What the budget is for the feasibility study, the net budget?
Through your worship, we've estimated the cost based on previous experiences in this type of work. The 40,000 would include the initial feasibility study and also consultation and concept plans if council choose to include it and then proceed to that level. Obviously there'll be several hold points as part of that, so the budget may be a lot less once the feasibility study is done. The estimated price for the selling of the pump track is very unknown, so we've estimated it at $10,000, but that's just an estimation.
Okay, so thank you.
I'm just following on from that. To understand that if the feasibility report comes back and says that site is not feasible, we wouldn't be going to concept design. Is that correct?
Through
potentially even less money.
That would be my recommendation. Council can decide what to do at that stage, but yes, there'd be a hold point at that stage and council could choose how to proceed.
Henschke, do you have another question?
Yes, if I may. Look, to comment that, well, actually I'll speak, that the, you know, really the
item number 10 there seems very sound that, that we do, do an audit, and I don't agree with 10 here. We need an audit because we can't just have this sort of nominal status quo thing, because it was written in stone that we have to plant 1,000 trees. I don't remember, what the data was behind that number of 1,000. So in terms of decision making for a budget, I'm very grateful the administration's proposed the idea of doing an audit, because otherwise we're just assuming that we need 1,000 trees. We may need 10,000 trees, so I just don't understand the logic. There's no data to say 10,000 trees, and that's why we need the audit. Otherwise we're wasting money. That's where we're wasting money. We're not going to be effective and efficient. And the administration, as far as I understand, have been reviewing costs throughout this budget cycle. We've heard it numerous times in every workshop. So I feel confident, we can say to our community that since last year, that the administration has been reviewing costs. They have reviewed all the service offerings, and it's a work in progress, of course. It's a big job. So look, we just, and I support what Councillor Cornish said earlier. We've spent a lot of money on tree planting. It might not be the right thing to do this dry year, like Councillor Wilkins said. So I can't support decisions without data.
I've got five more people who want to ask questions, who have all spoken. And I am concerned about the time and getting a decision. So I'm going to suggest, I'd like someone to move that we extend time until 11 p.m. We have to do, or earlier if necessary, Councillor Turnbull, but we have to get a decision on this tonight. Right? And I've got 5 people who want to ask questions before we get even a summary. And there may be others who wish to speak who have not spoken yet.
I'd like to move a point of order, subject to what Councillor Henschke has just said. Under Section 18 of the meeting procedures, I want to see a copy of the report concerning the vote to increase the number of tree plantings to 1,000, and I won't vote on this motion without it.
What's the specific document? What the date of it? What's the specific document?
Through the Mayor, Councillor Jones, I think under that Section 18 you need to be specific around what document you are wanting, like the name of the document that you're wanting before you can table, before it. That's a specific.
Right, like the paper, you said there's a motion that Council passed that they will plant 1,000 trees a year. There must have been an agenda paper that supported that resolution, which presumably you can just whiz up in your system.
He needs to specify the document and the date.
Right.
Yeah, through the Mayor, Councillor Jones, we need the name of the document and the date for us. That's what specifically says that. So we won't be able to do that.
That's what's required to to insist upon a point of order. Councillor Davey, I'm still going back to.
I just had a question.
I have to get a solution on time, because I've got 6 people with questions now. All right, and we haven't even got through this. Thank you, Councillor Wilkins. You'll move that we extend till 11 or earlier. If we finish earlier than that, we will finish earlier. Thank you. All those in favour of the extension of time? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right. And sorry, seconder was Councillor Dawes. Councillor Wilkins, Councillor Dawes. Oh, sorry, it might have been Councillor Jennings. Apologies, it was Councillor Jennings. Okay, I'll do it again. Those in favour of extending the time? We must decide on this tonight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right, 6 against. Right, I'm going to have the casting vote. Then we extend the time till 11 p.m. or earlier if we finish this debate. This has to be decided tonight. Let's waste some more time. All right, division is called. 6 people who stood, who voted for. Councillor Dawes, Wilkins, Jennings, Henschke, Cornish, Hallett and the Mayor. Those against, Councillor Turnbull, Jones, Hubel, Davey, Zing and Harvey.
Thank you, Mayor. Could I just ask a question which might help clarify a point that was raised earlier about the audit and the point of the audit that's mentioned in point 10, which was originated, I think, by the Risk and Audit Committee. Could we have some clarification on the purpose of that, please, which might help council members? Thank you.
Through the Mayor, are you asking for the purpose of the action or the purpose of the actual audit?
What we're doing in terms of the audit.
Sorry, the proposed action audit, so not the overall internal audit. Sorry, yes, okay. So that is to do an in-depth analysis of the entire city's verge spaces to identify current vacant appropriate land for planting new trees.
Councillor Turnbull, you have a question.
I have a question, please. Yes. When we go up to the depot, they show us all the trees on a big map. Now, surely we can do an audit using that, the technologies that we've got, because you go through and you say, yeah, there's 5 trees in this place, these 2 have died. Can't we do it with technology rather than waste money on it?
Through your worship, we went through this in quite a bit of detail at the workshop, so I'll try and summarise it. But yes, we already do that, and we have an idea from a desktop analysis of where vacant positions are, locations are throughout the city. However, that doesn't tell us current soil type, whether it's under SAPN power lines, what's buried underneath, what are the growing conditions, what suitable conditions are. You need an arborist to actually go and assess each location to see what kind of tree, if any, would be suitable for planting. So it's a lot more than just a desktop review.
Councillor Harvey, you have a question.
Thank you. I have a question. It's a 2-part question. Haven't we just been renamed Tree City of the World recently?
Yes.
Yes. And subsequent other years, would that be based on 1,000 trees being planted?
No, it's based on about 6 or 7 different criteria, and it's more about tree management and promotion, education, rather than just a arbitrary number for planting.
I'm going to go back to Councillor Davey now to sum up and then put the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in summary, I'll try to address and thank you everyone for your input. It was very surprising to me that we had a late inclusion of a proposal to reduce tree planting by the sustainability officers in this time of climate change. I have to say I was really surprised at that. I believe the audit could be conducted in addition to funding the planting of 1,000 trees instead of only 500 at 60k. As we all know, we're in a drought and currently have huge numbers of trees dying across our streets. I thank Councillor Cornish for his passion and for pointing out the amount of resources we do expend on our parks and trees. And this is no less than what our community expect, and our status as a Tree of the World, Tree City of the World, and all the other accolades we get. But I think tree management encompasses a huge amount of tree pruning and risk management, including all the resources that are spent on the parks the trees are located in, with irrigation and other maintenance projects. However, unless we maintain our tree planting intensity and support the trees we have, we will start to impact significantly to delete our canopy. As we all know, trees take many years to establish and grow to cool and green our suburbs and to make our parks wilder. Spending $40,000 on a feasibility study for a skate park, particularly one inappropriately proposed in Linden Avenue Reserved, is an absolute waste of money and resources. My point is that the 40k allocated for that, or proposed to be allocated for that, could be much better spent on offsetting the costs of continuing to plant 1,000 trees per annum to replace those we are consistently losing in climate change and this drought. So hopefully you'll support this amendment and we can get the budget through so that we are able to go out to community consultation and hear what our community want us to do. So thank you, hopefully, for your support.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Motion's lost. Division's been called. All those who voted in favour, please stand. Councillor Harvey, Davey, Jones, Wilkins and Turnbull. Those against, remain standing please. Those against, Councillor Dawes, Jennings, Hubel, Zing, Hallett, Cornish and Henschke. I seek, the motion is lost. Now I seek an alternate motion. Councillor Dawes.
Yes, I will move the officer's recommendation, and I've stated the reasons before. I guess from my perspective, and I will talk about the Will Park here, I certainly got the impression, you know, there are people against it from the older community and people for it from the younger community, and it's kind of hard to know, you know, whether it should go ahead or not. In fact, I don't even know if it could go ahead until the feasibility study has started. There are 6 pause points that Mr. Cantor's said to us many times, and after the first consultant's report, and it shows that it's not feasible, and Bob, you know, indicates a number of areas where perhaps it shouldn't occur. Whether he's right or wrong, I don't know. I'd like to know. And then if the feasibility study says no, or halfway through, we don't proceed with it. We don't spend net 30. So I'm glad that Councillor Henschke mentioned it. It's a net 30,000. It's not 40,000. So I want to give it a go. I know some people say it's the worst possible position to have one. The reason why it was suggested, and this has been said in council before, is because no one wanted it in a park. Kensington Gardens, Newling, Kensington Park. We went through all that. This is not a park, and it was on a main road, and it was central. So it's no good holding your hands up in the air unless you say to yourself, well, I want to see if it's feasible. I believe, this is what I believe, if the feasibility study says no, it can't happen, I don't think we're ever going to have a Will Park. That's where I sit at the moment. But I'm prepared to give it a go. And also I'm prepared to support what the staff are saying about the audit process and the 500 trees. My last comment, and I should have said something while the deputies were here. I've got 1 more minute, is that correct? Thank you, Martin. Is there were some comments made critical of our staff about, well, they don't know what they're doing. Now, our staff who have been involved with this from I don't know how long ago believed that this was a possibility. And I do trust the staff to say to us, well, I'm sorry, Councillor Dawes, this is not going to work. All right, we won't proceed. But what we got back was, yes, there is a possibility, but to make sure we need a feasibility study to say yes or no. So let's give it a go. I'm moving the officer's recommendation.
Councillor Jennings, are you seconding?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I will be seconding the officer's recommendation, and
do you want to speak now?
I'm going to I'll speak later.
Councillor Davey.
I'd just like to say my understanding is that there hasn't been criticism of the staff, but a lot of the residents affected have have researched thoroughly through our records and have gone through, as we've heard in deputations, have gone through the records, the assessments for all the previous skate parks, and have come up with the evidence that was presented to us that Linden Avenue Reserve was not a suitable site for a skate park. It is actually a little park, it's classified as a reserve, and it is not fair to say that it is that it's just a road site. So I'm a bit gobsmacked. I'm also a bit gobsmacked at the criticism that misinformation has been spread. I have been vilified because I let the residents of my constituents in Hazelwood Park know what was being planned when it was raised out of the blue in the community. So I just want to set the record straight to say that I am entitled to represent my community, to let them know what's going on in council, what is being planned and what is being promoted in their area that they have no inkling of. And I will not tolerate being vilified for doing that. All I have done is let my residents and ratepayers know. And I just want that on the record. Thank you.
Councillor Harvey.
I just have a question, please, for administration. Is Linden Avenue Reserve a reserve?
Through the Mayor, it's classified as road reserve. Road reserve.
Councillor Jones.
Yes, I have a question, and this is following up from one of the deputations saying that there weren't many sporting facilities in Burnside. Why doesn't the City of Burnside have any facilities for hockey?
Do you really want an answer, a historical?
Yeah.
Right, what happened was we used to have 5 hockey pitches in Burnside back in the 70s. When hockey became an international sport, and, well, it was already an international sport, but when the International Organisation of Hockey, the organisation, decided that competition had to be played on supergrass or artificial turf, they were eliminated. Also, the old hockey club building was determined to be needing to be demolished, and that was located actually at Kensington Gardens Reserve, right at the side over towards the tennis courts, in front of what were 2 hockey pitches, which is now a cricket pitch, right? The other 2 hockey pitches that belonged to the women's club, or one was men's, one was women's, was at Glenunga Oval, Margaret Bond, that's why it's called Margaret Bond Oval. One of those was a men's hockey, the clubs were separate in those days. The men's club had one pitch, the women's club had the other. The other women's pitch was in West Terrace in Kensington Gardens, and it's the southwestern corner, which has now got paths, etc. going through. It was never able to be used by A grade because it was too short, it wasn't 100 metres long. So that's the history, and then they tried, my first time on council, 16, 17 years ago, they attempted to try to get a piece of land behind the tennis courts and the bowling club, between there and the new bitumen tennis courts, to get that piece of land to have built a hockey pitch. So that's the history, and it got canned because it didn't have the money and it didn't get the sport, and guess what? Nobody wanted to lose grass. History repeats itself. So that's the story about hockey.
So the follow-up question is, there's obviously demand to play hockey in Burnside because there's a Burnside Hockey Club. So why aren't we building them a hocky pitch?
Point of order, Your Worship, this has
Nothing to do, no.
It
No, it doesn't. All right, fair comment, and it is an appropriate point of order. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? All right, Councillor Dawes, Councillor Harvey.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd also like it on the record, as Councillor Davey has indicated too. I too have been vilified, like Councillor Davey, for supposedly providing misinformation. I take offence to Councillor Hallett stating that I have done so, and others have provided misinformation. That is appalling behaviour from an elected member towards another elected member in what is a toxic and divided council, which you seem to fuel by stating
Excuse me, but
disgusting...
I think this is sorry. These are personal attacks that should not be happening.
Well,
I don't have
exactly.
excuse me. I do not have a problem with you making a statement, but you cannot turn it into another attack on an individual
Well, excuse me, I was just attacked by Councillor Hallett, so has Councillor Davey been attacked.
Excuse me, you were not attacked publicly.
I was, just then, before. Councillor Hallett may not have named somebody tonight, but she certainly did.
I'm sorry, the point of order has been
in an email today.
It has been upheld. I don't know how to remove her microphone. I can't. Yes. I have the same feeling. However, if I did that, I would be in World War III. All right. Is there anyone who wishes to speak? Otherwise, I'm going back to Councillor Dawes. Please to sum up. Have your opportunity to speak as a seconder.
Yeah,
I'll allow you to speak. I'm not allowing anyone else to speak. We're moving on.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. We have got the draft annual business plan and budget for 2025-26 and a long-term draft financial plan. I believe we should go with the officer's recommendation and get this moving along. Let's stop filibustering and... Well, you know, the community is going to get to decide in 18 months how well this council has worked together. And it's probably for the best. This is really nasty stuff to be coming out of me. But, sorry, let's just get this moving along and onwards and upwards. Thank you.
Right. Councillor Dawes, please to sum up. I'm not allowing you, Councillor Jones. I already had actually called a halt and
You
asked...
can't. You have no power to call a halt.
I do. I have already...
motion that the motion be put.
Thank you, Councillor. I need a seconder for the motion to be put. Councillor Zing, thank you. Motion's been put. Motion to be put, so I am going to put the motion.
You need to vote on the motion to be put.
Yeah, vote on the motion to be put. All right, all those in favour of the motion be put. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those against? There are 6. I'm going to use a casting vote that the motion be put. Division. Right, sorry? Yeah. I support the motion that the motion be put. Division has been called. So those who supported the motion, please stand. Councillor Dawes, Jennings, Henschke, Cornish, Hallett, Zing and Mayor Monceau. Those against, Turnbull, Wilkins, Jones, Hubel, Davey and Harvey. The motion is carried. Now, I will put the motion as it stands. All those in favour of the motion? Those against? The motion is carried. Division has been called. So those who voted in favour, please stand. Councillors Hubel, Jennings, Dawes, Henschke, Cornish, Hallett and Zing. Against, Councillors Harvey, Davey, Jones, Wilkins and Turnbull. The motion is carried. Thank you for getting the draft business plan through. We said that we would finish the meeting at this point in time because that is what you agreed to. So I am going to end the meeting at 10:41. And thank you for all your attendance and for the staff, particularly for their patience.